entitled Mom Demands Disabled Seat, Then Misses Her Flight Train. Okay, so, interesting thing happened to me today. The local train is set up in a way that it goes as a full train for 90% of the line, then splits into two trains in the end, one going to the suburbs and one going to the airport. So far so good. I was on the part that goes to the suburbs. Like usual today, currently there is holiday season here. So there are lots of people with suitcases around that want to go to the airport, and almost every day I see people who enter the rear part of the train towards the suburbs by mistake. I usually help those people out and tell them when they can best change to get into the front part of the train to the airport. You can easily spot them with a big suitcase looking a bit out of place, but today was different. I have a bit of a limp on right leg, so I'm pretty slow and usually sit in the disabled seat. Makes it easier for me to get in and out of the train. Cue the entitled family. Now today, big family, all with suitcases, entered Mom, Dad, 2 kids and Grandma the train, and started arguing about if the train goes to the airport or not, with Mom being very sure it goes to the airport, and they are all wrong, looking for seats. They are coming over towards me. I was pretty much sitting alone. Mom coming up to me and telling me that I should get up and make room for them, telling me I was sitting in a family part and should not be sitting there. To be honest, I would have made room for them anyways, but I only smiled at them and got up without another word. But Mom was not done yet, telling me off how rude I am and that I should look out for people who actually need those spots, lol. Dad pulled her to the side and just pointed out my limp and that I am probably disabled. She only looked at me like sour grapes. Just very much insincere apology. I was staying quiet towards them, moving a couple seats over and watching with somewhat malicious delight, as they realized they were in the wrong part of the train and missed the last station to switch over. Comments. Commenter 1. I think it's really sad that life doesn't have more opportunities for good people to be able to passively avenge themselves. Commenter 2. I would have pointed that out about 5 mins past the last chance to get off the train. Commenter 3. When I used to take the train to work, I took the bullet train. It wasn't that fast. It just skipped a bunch of stops, saving 40 minutes. This group of kids got on, and they were loud and obnoxious. A number of people told them to quiet down. They didn't. When the conductor came by, he told them they were on the wrong train. One girl completely freaked. As they had to be at a certain stop, he tried calming them down, but Freakout Girl would not have it. So dramatic. The conductor explained that if they got off at stop D, they could catch the next train, and they'd be fine. So they went back to being obnoxious and loud. A rather sweet woman asked them to quiet down. Dramatic Girl told her to mind her own business. When we got to stop D, they were so loud they missed the announcement. As the train resumed, the sweet woman looked at Dramatic Girl and asked them, "What was your stop?" Just as Dramatic Girl was about to speak, she noticed the sign for the stop, and freaked. Someone said that if they'd been quiet, they would have heard the announcement. The sweet woman said, "Well, when we get to the station, the next train south will be stopping at your stop, so you'll be fine." The regulars knew that when we pulled into the station at 8,000, the 8:05 was supposed to be there. We also knew that our train almost never arrived before 8:05, so as we were approaching, we could see their train departing. No one said a word. But we all got off that train with big smiles. I didn't wait around to see the result, but I can imagine. Commenter 4. Malicious compliance? Giving people what they ask for when you know it will hurt them or is not in their interests, is fair. Please be careful what you ask for in case you get it. Consider yourself an agent for karma. Best wishes. Stories number 2. I'm the other woman in an older man's marriage. Hi, 2 hot takes. I'm pretty sure I already know what I need to do. I'm writing this so I can get all my feelings out about the situation, and maybe for some reassurance from this community. So, to begin, I 27F am a bartender in a vacation town. A few weeks ago, I had a customer come in alone who was pretty shy at first. He was older than me. I would later find out he was in his 40s. And I thought he was really handsome. I chat up all my customers, but eventually, it slowed down to a point where he was the only one in the bar for a bit. So we got talking and hit it off pretty fast. He explained he was in the area on a work trip, and while I don't want to give specifics that would identify him, I found his profession to be really endearing as he told me he works with disabled children. We got to know each other throughout my shift, and he gave me his number before he left for the night. I texted him the following morning, and we got to chatting pretty regularly. He came in again during my next shift, and afterwards texted me to ask if I'd like to go grab drinks somewhere. Though I wanted to, I had a flight for a wedding the next morning, and I needed to pack after work. So I declined. A day or two after I returned from the wedding, He let me know he was back in the area for work, and asked again if I'd like to meet up for drinks. This time I said yes, and after I got out of work one night, I met up with him. Our texting up until this point had been vaguely flirty, but neither of us had admitted outright yet that we were attracted to each other. So whether this was a date or not was unknown. I've also never been in a situation like this where I was interested in someone 15+ years older than me. At some point during our time together, I asked him if he was divorced, since it was hard for me to believe that he'd never been married before at his age. Looking the way he did, he told me yes, he'd been married and divorced before to a woman he'd been with for over a decade. He made no mention of being with anyone else currently, or being in any sort of open relationship. Throughout our time together we got more flirty, and eventually I admitted that I hoped this was a date and that I was attracted to him. He let me know the feeling was mutual, and at the end of the date I asked to kiss him, to which he said yes, we kissed, and he asked if I'd come back to his hotel room with him. Because I had class the next morning, I politely declined, even though I wanted to say yes. We ended up going our separate ways, and ever since that night have been texting almost every day. Our conversations got progressively more suggestive, and though it didn't turn into full sexting, it got pretty close. I was becoming more and more interested in him and really looking forward to the next time he'd be in my town, so I could finally take him up on his offer to join him at his hotel. I noticed that while he really seemed to enjoy texting me, he didn't ask me many questions about myself like I asked questions about him. He told me a little about his life and his dogs, and that the next time he'd be in my town, he'd be bringing them with him. Out of curiosity, I asked who watched his dogs while he was on his work trips. He said friends watched them. I mentioned that maybe I could come visit him in his town at some point since it wasn't too far away. That way he wouldn't have to drive to see me or arrange for his dogs to be taken care of while he was gone. His exact response? We could certainly work on that. That's when I got the gut feeling that wouldn't go away. It literally kept me awake until I pulled out my phone and got to investigating. I didn't know his last name, but I knew his first and where he worked. So I Googled that, I found him pretty quickly, and once I learned his last name, I looked him up on Facebook. I found his profile almost immediately, along with, you guessed it, his wife's. I sat up in my bed and just stared for a few minutes. The pictures from their wedding were posted just a few days over a year ago, meaning he was texting me about all the places he wanted to kiss me during their first anniversary. There's a lot I have to be grateful for here. I never slept with him, and I found out who he really was after only a few weeks. Based on what he told me about his job, his childhood, and his love of dogs, I truly thought he was a sweet, honest guy. Usually I'm very good at picking up when people are lying, as I've been gaslit and manipulated in romantic relationships before. I know this is how every Reddit post of this nature goes. But with him, I really believed everything he said. It was only that one slip-up over text that gave him away. Now I have his wife's Facebook account. I know I need to tell her. I was never looking for exclusivity with this man, as I honestly don't have the time for it. But I refuse to be the other woman. His wife deserves to know what's been going on. I know if I was her, I'd want to know. I've already started screenshotting my conversations with him for proof. I guess I'm posting on Reddit right now because I need assistance with the execution of it all. I really am not a malicious person, and if I feel any anger at all, it's on his wife's behalf. I don't want to destroy his life, mostly because that would probably just end up hurting her too. So Reddit, what's the best way to tell her that her husband has been stepping out on her with me? Relevant comments. OOP clarifies the timeline of the relationship of how she got to talk with the man. Reply, hi. I know I worded that weird, but it's not AI. Just a few days over a year ago, as in, it's only been a little over a year they got married, and we were talking during what would have been their anniversary. Commenter 1, she definitely deserves to know that her husband is picking up women in bars. Just tell her, I think you should know that your husband is not being faithful. Then send her the screenshots of the texts and a brief explanation of how you met, how he invited you on dates and to his hotel room. Update me. Commenter 2, never protect the cheater. His wife deserves to know. Send her receipts too. You both deserve better. Commenter 3, yes, you should contact the wife. Tell her before you tell him so that he can't block you on her account. Send the screenshots and give her the option to decide how she wants to move forward. Don't tell him you told her, just block him. He's definitely not in an open relationship because if you're ethically non-monogamous, you'll tell your other partner, update. I'm the other woman in an older man's marriage. Hi again. A few days ago, I posted asking for advice on how to tell an older man's wife that he was trying to cheat on her with me. Since then, I received a lot of feedback, which I'm grateful for. Before I get into what I chose to do, I just wanted to clarify a few things. A lot of people took issue with the fact that I didn't know his last name after talking with him for a few weeks, and others thought I wanted to steal him from his wife. I guess I didn't explain well enough before, but I was never looking for an exclusive relationship with this man. School and work are my top priorities right now, and because of that, I simply don't have the time or emotional energy for a committed relationship. When I met him, all I was hoping for was something casual, especially since he didn't even live in the area. He could have been hooking up with other women while seeing me, and that truly wouldn't have bothered me as long as he was being honest about it and wearing protection. I didn't think to ask him his last name before the 3-week mark, because I really just hadn't made an emotional investment. But you all are right. If I'm going to get involved with someone romantically, sexually, in any capacity, I should learn their last name much sooner, at least before I go out with them. One person also said to avoid tourists and people on business trips from here on out. And I agree. Even in the casual sense, it's going to get messy. Like I said, if he'd been seeing other women, it would have been fine with me. Some of you said he might be in an open relationship, which I touched on in my first post. I don't think this is true. Because the point of an open relationship is that you're open about it with both your partner and the other people you're seeing. He never mentioned being in one or having a wife at all. So even if he was, he still lied to me. So for the actual update, I told her. The question in my last post wasn't whether to tell her or not. It was how, though, lost sleep over this the last few days. I spoke with some of my close girlfriends, and they all said they'd want to know if they were the wife in this scenario. I decided to message the wife when he said he'd be at a doctor's appointment. I thought reaching out to her while she's alone and has time to process before seeing him would be best. I essentially explained the situation, just like in my last post, with some extra details I left out here for anonymity's sake, so she'd know I wasn't lying. I apologized a lot, sent her screenshots of our conversations, and asked her that she not tell him that I gave her this information. If she went through his phone on her own like I suggested she should, then she'd be able to see the proof for herself, and hopefully she'd decide to just leave me out of it for my safety. I told her I'd leave our chat open for 24 hours if she wanted to talk or request more screenshots, and then I'd block her. At this point, I had already blocked the husband's number and his Facebook account too, just in case, even though we weren't friends. So 24 hours have passed, and no response. I'm not sure if Facebook allows you to see read receipts for messages if you aren't friends, but I know the message was delivered. She has not responded, and so I've gone ahead and blocked her, before I found out about his deception. The husband mentioned that he'd be in my town this week, and he knows which days I work. Hopefully this is the end of the story, and I never see either of them again. But if he decides to show up at my bar, then I will update if I'm still alive. Thank you all again for your feedback. P.S. To the guy who messaged me suggesting I could be the other woman in his marriage too. You're wild for that. Relevant comments? OP clarifies on the older man's posting on Facebook regarding the doctor's appointment. Reply: no. He didn't put on Facebook that he'd be at a doctor's appointment. He told me that he'd be there prior to me finding out he had already wife, because we were talking about the next time he'd be visiting my town. OP responds to a downvoted comment on how they met if she didn't know his last name. Reply: I didn't tell him where I worked. He happened to come into the bar I bartend at while I was working, and that's how we met. Downvoted commenter: you are exhausting, and I feel like every potential man you date should be required to read this entire post you wrote and its update first, before they agree to go out with you. I think you need to be real upfront with the type of person you are. Reply: honestly, this is great advice. If I could wear a big sign on my forehead that says, "Don't try to cheat on your wife with me," I'll tell her on every date I go on. It would save me a lot of time, energy, and money. Commenter: if you messengered her and you're not friends, she'll only see it if she sees there's a message request. As for read receipts, if you looked at your message sent and a dot with her profile pic appears at the right bottom, then she read it. I'm hoping you have some kind of support at the bar you work at should he come in and be angry. I'm sure you do. But definitely have a buddy with you when you leave, if he doesn't appear for the time he's supposed to be around. Stories number 3. I got a shut-up ring, and then I walked away. Hi everyone. This community was a real light for me when I was in the thick of it 3 or more years ago now, and I still engage with it now, because I really feel for any person who's been in a situation of waiting on a partner. I wanted to share my story, and hope it finds who it needs to find today to maybe give them encouragement. Also, I'm no longer with my ex-partner, And I'm also not engaged now, so I don't have it all figured out. And I think it's important to share I'm so happy now. Because sometimes I roll my eyes at people who come back to post about advice only after they've gotten engaged. Here's my story. My ex-partner and I. Let's call him Tim. We're together for about 9 years. What I couldn't see then, but I can see now, was that there was a pattern of non-commitment from day one. Tim took about a year to commit to being my boyfriend. At the time, I chalked it up to us being young and in college. But that pattern continued. Fast forward to post-grad, and we were both employed and doing really well. Even still, he found excuses. He needs to be promoted first, then was promoted. So then a new excuse would arise, then claim it was money. Yet he bought himself a new car and motorcycle. I stood my ground a few times. We would break up and then I'd backslide and get back together. After 9 years of tug-of-war, we did get engaged, and it was 100% a shut-up ring. I was hopeful that that was the magic trick that would make me feel whole. It wasn't. He wasn't involved in the wedding planning, and everything felt wrong. A lot of other things happened in our relationship, and eventually I called the wedding off. Everything was booked already. It was really terrifying. The months following, I did feel like I was dying. Having to lose someone I did love but ultimately knew wasn't the best for me nor me for him. Also, worrying about losing friends since our friend group was so enmeshed, and losing his family who I knew so well. All of the things. Healing took a long time. Therapy, good friends, volunteering, and rediscovering who I was through hobbies. Being okay to be alone. It took all those things. Also, the key was no contact. Fast forward almost 2 years after breaking off the engagement. I had actually found someone new. I was not looking. It was one of those things I can only now see was a sweet, invisible string waiting for me to find. My ex knew this, and showed up to my house to re-propose, and brought all the things I had once said would be my dream proposal. It hurt for many reasons. One, if he wanted to, he would too. He's only doing this because he can't have me. 3, he doesn't care about my happiness. He knows I'm healed and moved on and is willing to jeopardize that. All that to say, I stood my ground and denied him and told him I was with someone new. There was a small fear in me to be like, wait, am I going to say no to what I always dreamed of for the potential of this new partner? But then I realized I wasn't saying no for the potential of the new partner. I was saying yes to maintain this new version of me. This version of me was joyful and liked herself, and didn't realize how much that old relationship had made me dull and insecure. So, I feel like I broke a curse. I'm no longer obsessed with getting married because I don't see it as something that will validate my worth, but will be something to celebrate my love with my partner. I don't get upset seeing other engagements. I'm overjoyed for them. So, yes, now I'm with a lovely person who got the best version of me. A woman who knows her worth and claims it. I've set high standards, and he's met them each without me asking. He's even told me about his plans to propose, though I've never initiated that conversation, and not even worrying about it. It's a complete 180, so hopefully I'll have an engagement to share one day. But also if I don't, that's okay, and that's the point. I hope if you find yourself not being fully you, fully vibrant, that you check in on the relationship you're waiting on. They may just be keeping you from the most magical version of yourself, and maybe an amazing partner. 2 who will be everything you want, and more. Edit, just want to say thanks to every comment. I've read them all, and they're so kind and supportive. This is a great community, and I really wish everyone in this sub the best. Comments. Commenter 1. What is it with men who won't commit and motorcycles? When I was going through it with my ex, he was also like, I make so much money, but I'm not financially stable enough for a ring. I do want to buy a motorcycle soon, though. Also, congrats on getting out of there. It can be hard. Commenter 2. The fact is that Tim only proposed so he can tell himself, well, hey, I tried my best. She's the problem. Before he goes to sleep every night, reply, this. He for sure did it to evade guilt and convince others he was the victim. Update. I wrote a post about 3 months ago about how I walked away from a shut-up ring years ago. Not recently, and am now healed, and with a really awesome partner. Here's the update. My fiancé, the new partner from the post, proposed to me a few weekends back. It was truly the most magical, surreal thing. He did it on a trip, and did it during the beginning of the trip, so we could enjoy and celebrate the whole time together. I've been reflecting on how wonderful this dating and engagement experience has been. Here's 5 things I used to believe when I was the waiting for wed version of me, compared to what I believe now, along with my commentary for each. Take it or leave it. May not apply to all, and just my opinion. A proposal is synonymous with an engagement. I must conjure up signs and clues that indicate he is going to propose. Proposals can be a surprise, but the engagement shouldn't. I genuinely used to think that a guy would just propose, and there was no agreement or understanding beforehand on the process. I'm sure this is the case for some. In my case, we've been informally engaged for some time, and the fun part was having him surprise me with a beautiful proposal. In the prior relationship, I would be left in the dark and clue hunting and tea leaf reading with my fiancé. We agreed that we wanted to take this next step, and then he asked me how much I wanted to know about the process, so we could agree on the surprises. I told him I wanted to know when he got the ring and when he asked my family for their blessing. Outside of that surprised me. What I loved about this was he removed any anxiety, and instead it was a fun anticipation. 2. Getting engaged matters to me, not my boyfriend. It's not something guys care about. My partner should have just as much enthusiasm as I do about the engagement. The sentence says it all. My fiancé was openly telling people before our engagement how excited he was, and after, of course, excitedly gushing about it to our friends, family, and strangers early in the relationship too. He would initiate conversations about this topic. That was new to me. I used to assume every girl had to initiate these conversations, and that guys just weren't excited about this sort of thing. 3. My friends and family don't love my partner because they don't get it. Our love is deep and complicated, and it's us against the world. My friends and family will be thrilled when it's the right person. Of course, there's exceptions to this, but generally speaking, this is true. Our friends and family have acted like their favorite team just won the Super Bowl. Everyone is so happy we're engaged. In my past, people were more, "I'm happy if you're happy," about my prior engagement. If the overall consensus from those you love is concern, hear them out. My partner isn't good at gift giving or planning. Those aren't his love language, and that's why he has an XCY. Regardless of my partner's love language, they are capable, caring, and value the details because they know it's important to me. Every detail of the engagement was so thoughtful, personable, and caring. From my fiancé knowing my gold-silver jewelry preference, to the location and how he asked, all aspects of the proposal showed me that he sees me, knows me, and cares for me. We never had a deadline or anything of that nature, but had a general conversation of when we'd like the proposal to happen after we agreed about the engagement. He proposed at the beginning of our agreed window. That was another refreshing detail. He didn't want me to agonize waiting for it to happen, and he couldn't wait himself. He didn't wait until the last moment and whip something together, or make excuses as to why he couldn't do something. He just did it. Once we get engaged, these issues, or that gnawing feeling that this isn't right, will go away. Waiting on the ring is our only issue. A ring will not magically change your relationship. In my past relationship, I sincerely believed that a ring would solve all our problems. I thought that the disagreement on marriage and timelines was a siloed issue, our only issue. And that was not the case. When I got that shut-up ring, nothing changed. The problem merely morphed into a new issue. In my current relationship, I was so happy before the ring. A big contributing factor was that we both communicated early on our desires and expectations, and were aligned. I also think I entered the relationship with a posture of, I know my worth, my wants, and I'm not settling. I'm not afraid to be single. In my past, I entered relationships quite the opposite and slouched with, "Please don't leave me. I just want you to be happy, even if that means I'll silence my actual desires," to my own detriment. A big factor of this posture shift was decentralizing my fixation on getting engaged. For a long time, getting engaged seemed like an elixir that would magically make my world wonderful, and give me the validation I desperately wanted. After I left my ex, as I wrote in my original post, I did a lot of work to relearn how to love my life and be content with just me. For me, this looked like going to therapy regularly, leaning into hobbies, volunteering and community engagement, and connecting with friends and family. This helped me relearn who I was and find the best, individually whole version of me. I write all this because, as I said in my original post, I have the biggest soft spot for those waiting to wed. It's an incredibly isolating, confusing, and difficult place to be. I hope this post gives someone encouragement and makes them stand up for their worth and wants. I also wanted to share an update because I received so many kind words on my original post. Wanted to share how it all shook out. Comments. Commenter 1, lovely summary. Hopefully others will read this and start working on their self-worth with as much effort and success as you did. Congratulations. Commenter 2.2 rule is so important. Guys may not care about what the ring looks like and the little details, but they should be enthusiastic about marrying you. Honestly, does anyone want someone who isn't? Commenter 3. I don't know if this is real, I hope so. but it needs to be pinned and a mandatory read before anyone posts on Waiting to Wed. Reply, this is so sweet and it's definitely real. I'm a very anxious person, so I don't like to put too many identifiers in Reddit stories, which is why some details are vague for those reasons. Thank you. Stories number 4. ATA for telling my mom she is also to blame for why my brother and I won't host our parents for the holidays. Last Christmas was my brother's first holiday not living at home with our parents. He wanted to host everyone in his new apartment. Also around this time last year, my parents had mutually agreed not to get each other gifts as they were focusing on paying off some debt. Apparently there was some miscommunication. My dad thought this meant no gifts at all. My mom thought this meant no gifts. But they'd still exchange stockings. In our family, stockings are always small stuff. Body care, aw candy. You get the picture. I was living with my parents last year, and I had heard all the discussions. I honestly saw both sides when on Christmas morning, we all woke up and Mom didn't have her stocking filled from Dad. She was very quiet but clearly hurt. He ran out to the pharmacy, quickly bought some things to fill her stocking, saying he was sorry. Now, should my dad have communicated better? Sure. Do I understand my mom's hurt by the situation? Also sure. But I thought they'd be able to swallow it all for lunch at my brother's. We go and my dad is doing his best to make up for his blunder. My mom is in a terrible mood and keeps picking at him all day long, toward the end of our time there. She ended up making a snarky remark about my dad not filling her stocking. My dad flipped his shit and started screaming that nothing he does is enough, then stormed out. My brother was plus clearly upset by having Christmas ruined by their arguing. I convinced my mom we should leave not long after. My brother and I were upset with both of them. My dad shouldn't have flipped out and screamed. My mom also should have kept her comments to herself or spoken to my dad later. My brother was embarrassed as his roommate had come home, and while he was in his room, he overheard the arguing. My brother stopped having my parents over altogether after that. Though he'd still invite me, my brother would also visit us at my parents' place. Thanksgiving is fast approaching, and we were all trying to coordinate plans. I recently got my own place, but honestly don't want to host after last year. My brother said he's never hosting another holiday at his apartment again. My mom was hurt by this, but eventually we all just planned to have dinner at my parents' place later on. My mom was complaining to me that my brother won't have us over anymore. Feeling pushed out, she said it was my dad's fault, and she shouldn't be punished, I told her, while my dad was wrong for screaming. She chose to be whiny all day long. I clarified that I understood her hurt, but she also partially ruined the day by not letting it go. My mom got mad at me and accused me of taking sides. I said I'm not. If Dad bitched, I'd tell him the same, but he seems to understand that he ruined it. I also pointed out that neither of them ever apologized to my brother, and I'm not confident they'd never do it again. My mom says I'm in the wrong for how I spoke to her. Am I the ass here? Edit. Because of course everyone's favorite game is, let's play devil's advocate. This is not my parents' first time having an argument like this. In the past, it hasn't been about Christmas, but it's been about other stuff. They hate each other but stay married due to not being able to afford to divorce and live separately. They hate each other. Their screaming matches are constant, and they have ruined other family events. We've suggested therapy and they won't go. They want to stay trapped and miserable. Yet, when my brother and I bickered about stupid stuff as kids, they'd scream at us for ruining their peace. We're at the point where they don't get to do this without consequences. This is the consequence. For those saying I shouldn't blame my dad as much as I do in this post, the main reason I hold him at 50% is because he started screaming. If he had just remained quiet and spoke to my mom later, then he wouldn't be held to the same degree, because he screamed and refused to take accountability for his tantrum. He goes up here too, but I agree, without that, my mom is more at fault. Thank you to those who actually listened and paid attention. Even if I didn't agree with what you said, you didn't try to play stupid devil's advocate and make the story into something it wasn't. Commenter 1, you made the best point of all. Neither apologized to your brother. You also mention you think this situation could happen again. It kind of says all we as the internet needs to know about your parents. Commenter 2 NTA, you're, in fact, being the voice of reason. It reminds me of when kids have a spat. There's usually an adult to make them stop, think, express, and then work on solving things and apologizing. You're acting the adult, and your mom is acting the bratty kid. Who got a timeout? Reply commenter 3. It doesn't sound to me like your dad is originally responsible for the failure in communication. He was told no gifts, so he got no gifts. Mom then apparently made an addendum that said, well, you know, I'm gonna fill your stocking, and he was not notified. Based on her reaction, she definitely seems like the guilty party. She then proceeds to ruin Christmas for the rest of the whole family by picking at him all day in front of even your brother's roommate. And now she's complaining again because she's welcome anywhere. No, you are NTA. I wouldn't be going out of my way to invite them to my house either. You should have told your mom exactly what you told her, plus the fact that she failed to communicate clearly in the beginning. Has she communicated clearly to your father what the expectations were regarding gifts? He wouldn't have screwed it up. And it definitely seems like it was a matter of her communicating to him, because if it had been his idea in the first place, it would have been her that screwed up by getting gifts for the stockings. Commenter 4 NTA, but your mom clearly lacks insight? She has a victim mentality. The fact that she stands by the belief that your dad is responsible for the drama demonstrates her inability to understand her part in this and give grace in their relationship. DDET, this miscommunication. This is deeper than the one miscommunication about stockings. Your parents likely need therapy to address all their other deep-rooted issues. If they plan to stay together in the long term, it's likely clouding their ability to recognize the hurt that you and your brother are experiencing. If they're strong enough to go through with it, maybe you guys can someday consider hosting again. It'd be a worthwhile investment, since I imagine if you or your brother plan on expanding your families someday, everyone would want to have a welcoming environment without arguments. Stories number 5. My girlfriend invited my ex-wife and her family to my house for a pool party. She claims she didn't know she was my ex. I recently moved back to my hometown after 14 years. I left because I caught my then-wife cheating on me, and it broke me. When I moved back, I bought a house in my hometown with a pool. I started dating a girl named Katie. We have been together for 6 months, and I have met most but not all of her friends. I was out of town for a work-related thing, and she stayed at my house while I was gone. We have done this before and never had issues. I trust her and I need someone to feed my cat, so why not? She asked me if it would be okay if her friend and her kids came and used the pool and hung out the day I was returning. She told me her friend's name, and it was the same name as my ex-wife. I really didn't think too much of it. It's a common name. I said sure, but said I wanted some alone time in the evening, and she agreed. Just gonna be a day thing? I had a hard day of travel to get home. The airline had delays and I spent a long time on layovers. I was tired when I got home, but I knew Katie's friend and her kids were there, and I don't like to lash out due to stress, so I put my game face on and walked in the house. Katie ran up to me and gave me a hug and a kiss, then walked me to the kitchen to meet her friend. I was totally shocked when I saw my ex-wife and her husband in my kitchen, the guy she cheated on me with BTW. I literally had to pause for like 20 seconds and just stare until my brain rebooted and I could even say something. I asked what the hell they were doing in my kitchen, and she said she was Katie's friend. I asked her and her husband if they realized that they were in my house, and they said yes. They said they didn't know I was Katie's boyfriend until they got there. I told them they should leave, and Katie tried to talk me out of it, but I held firm. Their kids didn't want to leave, obviously, and my ex's husband was making comments to his kids like, "The bad man said you can't swim anymore today," and little shit like that. Pissed me right off. When they left, I asked Katie if she knew before that she was my ex-wife, and she said no, that's probably true, because Katie is 33, and my ex and I are 44 and 42 respectively. I rarely talk about her, and it's not like I showed Katie pics of her. Plus, Katie was in college when my ex and I split up, so it's not like they knew each other then. I asked Katie if my ex followed her on Instagram, and she said yes. If my ex is anything like she was back then, she lives her whole life on social media, and there is no way she didn't know from the pics on Katie's Insta that we were together. Katie said they met at Al-Anon, which does make sense because my ex was in it even back when we were together. Our town isn't that big, so there aren't a ton of different meetings. Katie says I overreacted and embarrassed her, but I told her that there was zero chance my ex didn't know Katie and I were together beforehand. This was some sort of power play or something. And creepy as fuck, honestly. I asked Katie if my ex had mentioned to her ever, like at all, that I was her ex-husband. Katie said she never said anything, and said again she didn't know she was my ex-wife. So then I asked Katie if she thought it was weird and creepy as fuck that her friend had realized beforehand, or when they arrived at my place, that she was at her ex-husband's house and decided to chill anyway knowing I was on my way home. I mean, think about it. If Katie and my ex are close enough outside of their meetings that she wanted to invite her over, then surely the topic of relationship status had some up at some point, right? Her lock screen is a picture of us at a baseball game, for fuck's sake. When I pointed that out, I could see some things were clicking into place for her, but she persisted about how I was rude and embarrassed her, etc. I asked her if she had ever shown my ex the pic on her lock screen of us, like in passing in a "do you have a BF" sort of way, and she said she had. I was like, how do you not see the weirdness then? Just how can she not see how weird this is? It's like a made-for-TV movie level creepy. I literally can't get my head around it. The thing is, my ex and I have had zero contact in 12 years. So for real, what the fuck? Katie is currently at her place, and we haven't talked since it's been 3 days. I'm just here stewing over it and trying to make it make sense in my head. I have no clue where to go from here. Am I overreacting? What should I do? I am very seriously thinking of ending my relationship over this. Sorry about the length. I'm just word vomiting onto my keyboard. Comments. Commenter 1. Your ex is creepy and conniving. If you and Katie stay together, I would be very careful. Reply. I'm wondering if Katie isn't talking to me because she is embarrassed she let herself be manipulated. I just can't see a way how I am the bad guy in this for feeling like this is weird. Commenter 2. I think the most helpful answer is saying, yes, I wasn't polite, and that's unfortunate, but why can't you understand how overwhelming it would be to randomly walk into your hosu and see your ex and the person they cheated on you with just hanging out in your house? If all you care about was me being rude and not about my feelings, then I think that says a lot. If you want to talk and move forward, that's great, but this is a situation I need you to prioritize my feelings and understand where I'm coming from. Reply. I think I'm going to use this and rephrase it a bit into my own way of talking. But this is spot on. Thank you. Commenter 3. You're totally new, and if Katie can't see how she was manipulated, then you need to take a massive step back and think hard if you want to continue relationship. The biggest red flag is her insistence that you embarrassed her, and that she hasn't apologized profusely about this. Reply. She keeps bringing it back to how I was less than polite when I asked them to leave. I have conceded that I could have been nicer, but it doesn't change the facts around the situation. Commenter 4. Your ex is creepy as fuck, knowingly coming into your home with her affair partner and kids ready to sit and wait and ambush you. Honestly, it's early days with your new GF. I'd consider cutting my losses if she insists on keeping this friendship. She will, even if unintentionally, keep your ex informed of your life. Stories number 6. I-44M caught my daughter 15 having sex in our home and I don't know what to do. My wife is out of town and son is away at college for break, so it's just me and my daughter. I was supposed to come home late from my office yesterday because of a lot of corporate bullshit I had to tend to, but realized I forgot a handful of documents in my office at home, so I had to come home earlier than expected. I come home, go upstairs, and walk towards my office down the hall and see my daughter's room door cracked almost halfway open. Wouldn't have thought twice about it if I didn't hear breathing noises coming from her room. I regretfully looked in with a lot of hesitation, thinking it may have been my wife cheating on me, believe it or not. Instead, I see my daughter on top of her boyfriend. I suddenly got lightheaded and sick to my stomach. As much as I wanted to bust in there and grab the kid by the neck, my more reasonable conscience told me that my daughter would hate me if I did that, and above that, would be mortified if I caught them. So it took every ounce of me to just walk into my office slowly and just went to work trying to ignore what just happened. I ended up sleeping in my office last night. I'm almost certain my daughter realized that I had known she was having sex last night, because when I came down for breakfast this morning, she was a little closed off and not willing to talk much. I'm assuming she saw my office light on and saw me sleeping earlier in the morning and figured I had walked past them last night. Anyway, I am pretty pissed right now for many reasons. I think my daughter is too young to have sex, and I'm very certain other parents would agree. I don't know what to do or say to her, but I want to sit down with her and have a talk. The last thing I need, me brushing this issue aside and making her believe that it's perfectly fine for her to have sex in my house with my knowing. With my anger, there is certainly heartache and disappointment, because I feel like there was also a considerable level of disrespect on my daughter's part for at least not trying to hide it. Yes, I came home early, but I came home to my house. I haven't talked to my wife yet either, and she doesn't get back until Thursday TLDR. Caught my daughter having sex with BF in our home, and now I'm pissed and don't know what to say or do with her. Replies from Oop. That's the thing. Her mother is a nurse practitioner, and already gave her the entire rundown when our daughter took a health class last year. As relieved as that makes me to know she's well aware, it also worries me because it may give her too much confidence regarding the matter. I'm not worried about any infections because she and her BF are very close, and he's a pretty good boy if I must say. I'm just worried about the pregnancy issue because I know she doesn't have BC at this moment, and I didn't stick around long enough to see if her BF was using a condom. As mentioned, my wife is an NP with a heavy background in the uterine-ovarian cycle. And I can say that if anyone noticed or had any reason to believe our daughter was on the pill, her mother would be that person. I will give my wife a call later tonight and give her a little background on what happened so that she can get on the birth control thing right away. Very good points. Thank you. I am hoping that my daughter has already been well aware of her consenting rights and has properly conveyed them to her BF, because I'm fairly certain I will destroy the kid in every way if I ever find out. I don't give a shit if she's 15 or 30. No one is going to coerce my daughter into doing something she doesn't want to, but I will certainly bring these topics up when we talk to her as well. Yes, age is an issue, but that's about 20% of my concern. My main problem is that if she is going to have sex in our home, why not use more discretion? My wife and I do all the time, my son did as well, and so well that we didn't even know. If she thinks she's grown up enough to have sex, she's damn well grown up enough to be more courteous about closing her bedroom door and not leaving it halfway open so that I or anyone else can hear her moaning, "That's disrespectful and rude." Update. I 44M caught my daughter 15 having sex in our home, and I don't know what to do. Yesterday, I felt a little more calm and collected in comparison to the day after I found out what was happening. My daughter's breakfast session with me was very brief as I just made my coffee and ran out. I wasn't trying to avoid her. I had 2 board meetings to attend that day, one of which I was leading, so I didn't have much time, obviously. I come home later in the afternoon. Daughter is home. She welcomes me with a hug and kiss, and then proceeds to be very cute and bashful with me. She asked how my day was, and what business plans I was planning to make. Things that she hasn't had interest in talking about for ages. This alone was a red flag that indicated that she probably thought that I knew about her and the BF. Chris. The night ended with my daughter asking if she could join me on the couch to watch a movie until she fell asleep. She put her head on a pillow on my lap and watched the movie. I will admit that I had some mixed feelings seeing her head on my lap, because it just reminded me of when she was 7 years old, and she would always watch TV with me like that. Those memories surprisingly began to lessen my disappointment. It was at that point that I became really calmed down about the situation, and realized how much my love for her will always overcome anything that may disappoint me. After she fell asleep, I called her mother and told her what had happened. She was shocked, but was prepared knowing that she would have to do most of the work when this day came. We discussed a plan of action beginning with her arrival today. Today I pick up wife from airport in the morning. We decided that it wouldn't be smart to approach her both at the same time. Her mother would break the news to her and immediately take her to get contraceptives and have an introductory talk about sex. Then I would talk to her when she got home. And then finally, my wife would continue to have a chat with her about the more personal and detailed sex issues that we knew wouldn't be comfortable or appropriate for me to discuss with her. According to my wife, our daughter was shocked and embarrassed to find out that I saw her and Chris. She apologized to her mom and asked her not to be mad, and that she was stupid for doing it out in the open like that. She was worried about how I would think, but my wife reassured her that I loved her very much, and that I would want to just figure this out with her help. They went out to get birth control pills and condoms, and during that trip, my wife gave her a detailed rundown of both contraceptive uses. They came home and my daughter immediately tried to hide from me upstairs. She told her mother that she needed about an hour before I had the talk with her. I gave her that time and space before going to her to have our discussion. She was embarrassed to look me in the eyes, but I told her I needed her to cooperate so that we could both get through this. I told her that her mother would continue talking to her later about the more personal sex questions later, and told her that she did not have to include any of that in our conversation, as I didn't want her to either. I got the following answers from the questions I asked. She and Chris have been having sex for about 4 months. Chris was a virgin as well when they started having sex. It was both of their ideas to begin having sex, but more so 60-40 with the boy as the majority. There was mutual consent, and neither one has pressured the other into doing something they didn't want to. There was only one time when Chris unintentionally did something she didn't want, but she informed him right away and he apologized and stopped. This made me realize that I needed to sit down with little Romeo and have a little chat with him. That night was the first night they had sex in our home. All other times were at his house. Both of Chris's parents know they have sex in their home. They also found out the hard way. Both thought they were too young, but in the end, accepted it and had a talk with Chris. His dad is more accepting of the kids having sex than his mother. His mom is still uneasy having them behind closed doors at home, but the dad is more okay with it at this point, like any stereotypical dad with his son. His dad had a talk with Chris about how to handle my daughter respectfully, and that I was happy to hear at least. I ended our talk with telling her that yes, as a dad, I was disappointed to find out that she was having sex at a young age, and wished she had waited a little longer, but made it clear to her that I was speaking from the point of view of most parents. I loved her, and would never shame her for exploring her sexuality like other teenagers her age. Her feelings and urges are natural like any other girl her age, nothing to be ashamed about. I just wanted her to show more discretion with her explorations like all other private matters in her life. She apologized over and over again, and told me she was stupid for not being more careful and courteous of the possibility of anyone else being home. I told her not to dwell on it anymore and to move on. I emphasized that I wanted her to be safe at all times, and that if she was old enough to have sex, she was old enough to be responsible about contraceptive use and considering the risk of becoming pregnant. I cautioned her not to think that her mother and I would take the responsibility of raising her potential child while she went on with her life. We have careers, responsibilities, and lives as well. And because having sex is a privilege and not a right, she would be responsible for purchasing the BC pills and condoms coming out from her savings account we have set up for her. I told her I loved her, and that I would always be there for her, and that she should not be afraid to come to me with any questions or concerns. I told her I planned on having a little civil talk with Chris about the topic sometime this weekend, and she said okay. Thanks to all of you who provided input, aside from some of the biased perspectives. All of you were great, and have helped me guide my role as a father in this type of a situation in the right direction. Thank you so much, TLDR. My wife and I spoke with our daughter about her having a sex life with her boyfriend. While a little embarrassed, she was very cooperative, as were we. Informed her about contraceptives and how to properly conduct herself in our home. Replies from Upi: "No, we had the talk first when she was 11. Quick rundown about sex and having babies. Then we went into more details about contraceptives, etc. when she took her health class last year. First of all, in regards to your first question, no. Her birth control would not be fully covered by insurance, based on a sliding scale. We have to provide a copay for most if not all of our prescriptions. While having the proper contraceptives is a necessity to avoid pregnancy, that necessity would be obsolete if her having sex wasn't in the equation to begin with. And having sex is certainly not a necessity at her age in terms of absolute value. So I see the responsibility of buying and using condoms and BC pills as a responsibility that my daughter must procure. Do I want my daughter to get pregnant at 15? Of course not. But her decision to have sex is one that all adults make. As adults ourselves. You and I know no one will be buying us condoms or BC pills anytime soon. So why should I make any exceptions for my daughter? Because she's 15? Mature actions require mature considerations and planning, and that is something that my daughter must learn before it's too late. Besides, it's not like using her own money to buy the contraceptives will put a dent in her savings account. She has more than enough funds in there to provide for her 4-year college education, as well as other amenities. Spending X dollars per month on things that will ensure that she continue to be a successful student and normal teenager is a very small price to pay. No. Any money she has made on her own, excluding allowance, is located in a joint checking account I have set up for her. All the money in her savings account came from my pocket, investments, stock options, etc. You need to understand that it's not a matter of petty treatment on our part when we choose not to pay for her pills, condoms. We are not trying to say, we think you're too young to have sex, and because we do, we won't pay for your stuff and you have to. So there. What we are trying to say is, you obviously think you're responsible enough to have sex at your age, and we respect that, but you must learn to consider all the other responsibilities that go with having sex, and we think you're mature and able enough to do just that. Then she will have to deal with the consequences along with the boy. I won't be putting my career and life aside, and neither will my wife, to sit home and babysit while my daughter finishes high school. What if she gets pregnant? Then she will have to take indefinite time off from school and take care of her child. I never said I would toss my daughter out on the street. I'm just not going to take over the responsibilities of her life due to her decisions. If she chooses not to use contraception, her fault and choice. And I'm fairly sure that there is a slim chance of conception when there is both a use of condoms and birth control. Final update, I-44M caught my daughter 15 having sex in our home, and I don't know what to do. I have a very busy schedule, but due to a large number of people requesting that I make a final update, I will provide one as I had promised. I have been a lot more relaxed and at ease after our talk with our daughter yesterday. I get back from the gym, and my daughter comes up to me and says that she had a little talk with Chris on Saturday night, telling him what I knew and what was discussed between us a couple of days ago. He was upset that they were caught and thought that I wanted to kill him. She assured him that I was calmed down and wanted to be very civil with him. She didn't mention to him that I wanted to sit down with him sometime in the future and just have a friendly talk about house rules and such, because she was afraid he might have had a nervous breakdown. She decided to hold that thought until a little while later. Then my daughter tells me that Chris had called her yesterday morning, and he asked her if he could talk to me. He told her that he always assumed I was still aggressive and angry from my college football days, and that really scared him. But he thought he would be an idiot not to own up to his actions and come to me to explain his side. He said that he put himself in my shoes and realized that he would probably react the way I did initially, and knows it wouldn't be right to leave the situation as is if he intended on not showing any disrespect towards my wife and me. I appreciated hearing all that, and the kid began to actually grow on me at that point. I must admit, it takes a lot of maturity for a 15-year-old to say those things. My daughter said that I would be leaving Tuesday for Europe and wouldn't be back for a while, so he should hurry and have the talk if he really wanted to. So he decided to come over to our home on Sunday evening. I told him right away that he needed to relax because I wasn't angry and aggressive. I told him that being strict didn't mean I was heartless. We sat down, and before anything, I gave him a quick rundown of the house rules and what I expected from the both of them in our house. I told him that in light of recent events, I have come to the conclusion that they are now both obligated to handle themselves as young adults and deal with any aspects of their relationship themselves. They can always come to us for advice and information, but ultimately, they will be the final decision makers in their relationship. All I expected was mutual respect, consent, and compromise. He understood everything that I said, and then began apologizing about what happened that night. He said he meant no disrespect to me or my wife, and that they even discussed closing the door, but stupidly decided it wouldn't matter according to him. I told him to relax, and that I have put myself in his shoes too the last couple of days, and realized how easy it would be for a couple of teenagers to act on a whim and not be careful about the things they do. I told him that common courtesy always matters regardless of you being alone or not. What you do invariably affects others at some point down the line. He mentioned that his parents knew, but had only recently found out a couple of weeks. He said they were shocked themselves and didn't know if they should approach my wife and I in fear of us lashing out at our daughter. So instead, his dad took up the task of talking to Chris about what he needed to know instead. He said that both his parents had the talk with him like we did with our daughter, and his parents also agreed to have their son be responsible for the purchase and use of condoms, and for those few dissenters who thought it was cruel for me to have my daughter be responsible for her own contraceptives. This boy, unlike my daughter, has to pay for his own stuff with an allowance that is half of my daughter's, in which he has mostly worked for one way or another. His parents provide funds for all important and normal costs that Chris may have, but have him pay for all the things he uses for fun times from his allowance. Therefore, condoms fall under that category. I told him that he shouldn't worry that much about the money, because being that my daughter is in a similar boat, they can work together to split the costs or trade off buying what they need to stay protected. They can also communicate with one another as a way to remind each other what needs to be done and when, so that we the adults don't have to involve ourselves in their business. I talked about a couple of more things that I won't get into details about because of time and length. I finished our conversation reminding him that he was a great student athlete that had a bright future just like my daughter in her academic career, and they both have very high hopes and goals. But the reality of those dreams will fail to appear if they choose to make the wrong decision from here on out. Thanks to everyone that helped. I really appreciate it, TLDR. The boy came to talk to me. He apologized and we discussed some ground rules for my house. He's a good kid. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Wow. I've been following your story this whole time and it's broken my heart a little bit. Not because you handled it badly, but because everyone handled this so well. My father would have gone about this all wrong from the start. And reading this makes me so happy for your daughter. What a lucky girl. And so in awe of you. She may not know it yet, but you've given her an incredible foundation on which she will build loving, trusting relationships throughout her life. Thank you. From a daughter who had to spend years in therapy learning to communicate, for teaching her this and showing her the way she should expect men to treat her. Good for you. Commenter 2. A 15-year-old boy came to talk to you about the fact that he's having sex with your daughter. That is one brave teenager. Commenter 3. I have been following all your updates too, and this is such a great ending. I am really impressed, and as a 26-year-old female, I have to say that your daughter is a really lucky girl to have you as her father. Thanks for all the positive updates. Stories number 7. I kicked a guy out my apartment mid-sex, and I've never felt more proud of myself. I met this guy online. We hooked up once months back, and we both had a good time. We decided to meet up again this afternoon at my place. He arrives on time and things start off well. He's gentle and sweet. We start getting busy. We're on the bed, and he's eating me out and fingering me. He then starts inserting 2, then 3, then 4 fingers. I tell him to go gentle, but then I can tell he full-on is trying to fist me. While he's doing this, he's not full-on chalking me, but he does occasionally apply quite a bit of pressure on my throat. The first time he did it, I said, "Yo, be careful," and moved his hand off my throat, thinking that would be enough for him to realize he crossed a line. We had never discussed, attempted, or agreed on him fisting me or handling me like this before. He looks up at me and says, "You feel so good. It feels good, doesn't it?" I'm laying there thinking, yeah, my body may be showing signs that it's enjoying it, but I need a break. So I said, "Actually, I need a break." And he slowly removes one finger, but then continues to rotate his handle to a different angle and goes back to trying to fist me. So again I said, "I need a break," and he says no. He proceeds to continue. Finally I'm like, "No, seriously, stop, I need a break." He says, "What, seriously already?" As I'm physically putting distance between my body and his hand. I sit up and just tell him that it was just a bit too much, too fast. Like, let's slow down. So I tell him to get on the bed and I'll go down on him instead, which is something I normally love doing and can do for hours. I start sucking him off and realized instantly that I just wasn't feeling it. And realized it was because of the whole earlier incident. I'm not used to being told no, especially not in my home, in my safe space, by a man that has no authority to tell me no. So I tell him point blank, "I'm sorry. I'm not feeling this, and you need to go." To say he was shocked would be an understatement. I explained to him that we never discussed him fisting me, and that when I told I needed a break, he said no, and that it just made me very uncomfortable. He proceeds to tell me that he was just trying to tap into his dominant side, and I replied that we don't have a relationship like that, and we never discussed using that kind of behavior. He started apologizing and I was, "Look, I appreciate it, but I'm trying to be more vocal and stand up for myself more. And right now I don't feel comfortable and that he has to go." He then goes on to say, "I shit you not. Can I at least put it inside you?" While I'm sitting naked on the bed feeling distraught, his dick is just staring right at me. I was like, "You've got it to be kidding. No, please just go." He continues to apologize and I tell him, "Look, maybe we can try again another time and discuss boundaries or expectations, but right now you gotta go." He finally leaves. I thought I'd feel guilty or weird kicking him out, but honestly, it felt so good. I know for a fact I would have felt worse if I had let him stay and continue on the evening. I felt so proud of myself because I know the old me would have been polite and let the evening go on. But this time I realized there was no reason for me to feel uncomfortable, unsafe, or uneasy when I can easily rid of the problem. I'm now sitting with both my kitties cuddling and comforting me. Comments, commenter 1, "You were polite. You politely told him it was time for him to go." Reply, "You know what? You are 100% correct. Since when is it polite to let someone assault you? Thank you for pointing that out." Commenter 2, I'd never see him again just based on him saying, "Can I at least put it inside you?" He has no regard for your feelings or safety. So proud you stood up for yourself. I need to be better about that too. Especially when I'm in my own home." Commenter 3, "I'm happy for you feeling empowered. I am pissed that this guy did what he did without consent. Never see him again." Commenter 4, "He was just trying to tap into his dominant side." You gotta be fucking kidding me. Stories number 8. I 28F commented on a post of my boyfriend 29M on a "Are we dating the same guy" page, and he found out, "What are my next steps?" I 28F recently found a post of my boyfriend 29M on a local "Are we dating the same guy" page. We have been together for 5 years. There were several comments on there of girls stating they texted him, went out with him, and I couldn't tell if this had happened recently or if it could have been from a long time ago. So I commented on it anonymously asking if anyone has talked or hooked up with him recently, and a girl responded saying she did and asked if I did as well, and if I had any tea on him. I probably should have said I was his girlfriend, but I was so embarrassed I couldn't, and worried I wouldn't get any information, so I just said, "He told me not to talk or sleep with anyone else and he wouldn't either, but that we never hooked up." She responded back claiming he said the exact same thing to her. I then asked when they last hooked up, and she never responded back. My boyfriend then comes home and is furious, slamming doors, giving me dirty looks, but won't say anything to me. I know he knows I was the one who anonymously posted because I had suspicions that he had been cheating on me, and have recently been asking him, and he denied doing so. I then go back to the post and all of her responses are deleted, so I know she told him, and I'm sure he told her to delete them, but he's pissed at me for it. Anyway, what are my next steps? Do I confront him about it or just wait and see if he says anything? Also, we rent an apartment together and are on the same lease, so that makes things even more complicated. Comments. Commenter 1. You break up with him, duh. How much time is left on your lease? Reply, oh, I am. I'm just wondering if I should even say anything about it, or just let it be. A little over 5 months. Commenter 2. Talk to whoever owns the lease and tell them you need to move out. And make sure you move out because he's been cheating on you the whole time. Get an STD and HIV test done ASAP. Do take steps to get away from him ASAP. Have an exit plan. Don't try and forgive him. No need to confront him. You know what he did. Can you go stay with your parents? If yes, take your important things and go. And tell all friends he cheated so they know. Reply, I will reach out to them first thing on Monday. Thank you for your advice. Commenter 3. Leave him? Why do you need a confession from him? You already know what's going on. Reply, I guess I want some kind of closure, although I don't think him admitting to it will give me that anyway. Plus, he'll probably lie, so it's just my own delusions wanting him to realize he's wrong. It's definitely over between us. Commenter 4. If he ever realizes he's wrong, it will be in 6 months from now when he's lonely and drunk, and he will call all apologetic and rambling about how he misses you. He'll say he fucked up, can't believe he did it. Blah blah, don't believe it. If he's mad at you for posting on a page that proved he was cheating, he won't ever find the kind of remorse you need. The kind of closure you need will come from within. And you already have enough info to get there. He cheated on you, got caught, and got mad at you for it. That's all you need. I'm sorry. It sucks. Reply, yes, it does. But thank you. It's definitely the start of a long road of finding who I am again. Stories number 9. My husband's coworker expected me to film her wedding for free, then dragged my name through his office when I refused. I'm a 29F videographer. I do weddings, small events, and promo videos for local businesses. My husband, 34, works at an architecture firm, and one of his coworkers, I'll call her Rachel, got married on last month Saturday, September 28th. Rachel told me about her wedding early last month. We met each other at AM Office BBQ my husband's firm was hosting. She came over very friendly and said, oh my God, I just found out you do wedding videos. You have to do mine. It'll be so nice to have someone I already know behind the camera. I smiled and told her sure, I'd love to send her my rate sheet. My prices are normal for the area. $1,800 for a full-day shoot, editing, and a highlight reel. She smiled, said she'd check it out, and that was it. A week later, she texted me saying, wait, I thought since we're basically family through your husband's job, you'd give me a friend discount or maybe do it as a gift. I told her nicely that I don't mix personal or work connections with free jobs. I've seen how messy that gets, especially with people connected to my husband's office. She read it and didn't reply. Days passed and my husband came home from work looking uncomfortable. He said, hey, just a heads up that Rachel's been telling people you're doing her wedding video. I was stunned because he knew I hadn't agreed to anything. I texted her asking why she'd say that, and she replied, oh, I just assumed you changed your mind. I've been so stressed, I figured you'd understand. I told her clearly that I wasn't available that weekend and had already booked another client. She just said, okay, but I really hope you reconsider. The wedding day on the last Saturday of September 28th. At 7:10 a.m., my phone started ringing nonstop. It was Rachel. When I finally picked up, she was crying and yelling that her videographer had canceled at the last minute, and she needed me to come through for her. I told her I had another client and couldn't just abandon them. She completely lost it, accusing me of being heartless and ungrateful after she'd always been so nice to me and my husband. I told her this was exactly why I don't mix work and personal connections. And I hung up. I blocked her number right after. My husband did end up going to the wedding for a few hours since it was a co-worker event, and he didn't want to make things more awkward at work. He said it was tense, and Rachel barely acknowledged him. This past week, HR called my husband into a meeting. Turns out Rachel emailed them claiming I had agreed to film her wedding and then backed out last minute, causing her to lose precious memories. She even implied that I was somehow representing his firm because we're married. My husband had to explain the whole story to HR, and thankfully they believed him. but it was still embarrassing for both of us. It's shocking that Rachel didn't stop at that. She made a Facebook post that night complaining about unprofessional videographers and tagged my business page. I had to contact Facebook to get it removed. Apparently, people in my husband's office are acting weird around him. Like I'm the stuck-up wife who refused to help. I've worked hard to build my name and reputation, and I'm furious that someone's entitlement could threaten that, all because she didn't want to pay for a service. Some people really think knowing someone equals owing them, TLDR. My husband's coworker told everyone I was filming her wedding even though I never agreed, then tried to destroy my reputation when I refused to do it for free. My husband got dragged into HR over it this past Tuesday. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. If I was your husband, I would file a complaint with HR about Rachel's harassment. It's as simple as that. Reply. He's done that already. And HR has warned her to stop any further actions regarding the matter, or it'll be handed over to a legal counsel court, which she'll definitely be penalized. Commenter 2. File a suit for defamation. Did you screenshot the review on Facebook? Reply, yay, but my husband say I should just keep it safe for now, in case the matter escalates, since the matter is still under the HR custody. Commenter 3. Did she really have her own videographer that canceled last minute? Or was that just another manipulation ploy to force you to do it for free? Keep all your proof of conversations between you and her. And if things don't settle down for you and your husband's workplace, then take appropriate actions to shut that entitled AH down. Reply. She's just a confused soul trying to make sense of a world that never made sense to her. Proof are intact. Update. My husband's coworker who wanted me to film her wedding for free finally apologized. Hey everyone, I posted a while back about my husband's coworker, Rachel, who expected me to film her wedding for free, then dragged my name through his office and even HR when I refused. I wanted to give a quick update since a few people requested for it. So Rachel actually apologized, apparently, after HR looked into everything, and my husband explained the full story with messages to back it up. They made it clear she'd crossed some serious line. This morning she sent my husband an email owning up to it. She said she realized she'd been unprofessional, that she made assumptions, and that she never should have told anyone I was filming her wedding before I'd agreed. She also admitted that posting about my business on Facebook was out of line, and she'd taken it down. She told my husband she'd clarified things with a few coworkers who'd heard her side of the story too. Honestly, I didn't expect her to apologize at all, so that was surprising. I'm still not thrilled about the damage control we had to do, but I appreciate that she at least took responsibility instead of doubling down. Hopefully, this is the end of it. Thanks again to everyone who backed me up in the original post. Y'all made me feel so much less crazy about standing my ground. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Someone probably explained to her she could be sued for defamation. Reply, I think so. She just came back to her senses. Commenter 2. I would get your husband to ask a couple of colleagues if she actually did clarify the situation with them as she claims she did. After all, she did lie wildly in the first place. Why would anyone trust her when she says she's rectified things at work? Great if she did actually take responsibility. No harm in him making sure. Trust but verify. Commenter 3. People have a great capacity of lying to themselves. It took HR's pressure for her to step back and get a clear look at herself. Stories number 10. My girlfriend 27F has a younger coworker 24M who keeps asking if she's still with me, 28M, and now he's invited her to his birthday party. So my girlfriend has a colleague at work who's a few years younger than her. She's naturally a friendly and social person. She jokes around with her coworkers and gets along with pretty much everyone. Recently, she told me that this one coworker keeps asking her things like, "Are you still with your boyfriend?" Which I found a bit weird. I told her I thought it was kind of sus, and she agreed it was a little strange, but said it's nothing serious. They just joke around a lot at work. Now, this coworker has invited her to his birthday party. It's apparently a gathering with their coworkers, not just the two of them. My girlfriend actually asked me first if I'd be okay with her going. I told her I was fine with it, but honestly, deep down, I don't really want her to go. At the same time, I don't want to be the controlling boyfriend who tells her what she can or can't do. I trust her, but that guy's behavior gives me a bad feeling. I don't know if I'm overthinking or if my gut feeling is valid. What should I do here? Should I talk to her again about how I feel? Or just let it go and trust her to handle it? Comments. Commenter 1. I'm 50 years old. And certainly no relationship Yoda, but I'll give you my opinion here. When your girlfriend asked you about going, it's understandable to not want to sound controlling, but when asked a question like this, she deserved an honest answer. You should have laid all your cards on the table right then and explained your feelings. A good partner that is all in on you and your relationship will not choose to harm the relationship, even if the action that harms is nothing to worry about, i.e., she has zero interest in this guy. If your girlfriend doesn't know how you actually feel, you can't use how she acts to gauge her behavior. Talk to her and leave nothing out. The two solutions to this are she either turns down the invite or brings you with her. If you do attend, hopefully it is without the guy knowing until you walk in. And you also ensure to mention how his concern about you and your girl's status is appreciated. Now the bad part is if after you share your feeling towards this guy, if you girl is not receptive to it, dismisses your feelings, doesn't bring you, goes alone, this could very well show you that this is the beginning of the end for your relationship. But again, your girl has to have all the information and know how you feel before you can judge her behavior. Commenter 2, can she not bring you to the birthday party as her +1? That would be a simple way for her to communicate to this guy that she's taken. It would also make it less likely that he'll try to get her blind drunk and take advantage of her sexually. If you're also there and keeping an eye on him, go to the party and be designated driver. Commenter 3, I always advise people to listen to their gut and emo. I think you are right to think he wants to get with her. While you cannot stop her or control her, you can express your feelings and talk with her about this. Tell her the guy makes you uncomfortable. Her reaction to that would speak volumes. Commenter 4, if she goes, she's only encouraging him. He's overstepping boundaries. He knows she's with someone, but is trying his best to change that. She needs to set him straight. She's with you, and she's not today or any other day interested in him, and the party isn't a good idea. Unless, of course, she does like him. I'd be uncomfortable with it not because of her, but because of him, and the already strange behavior around someone with a partner already. Stories number 11 Tifu, by not realizing I was in a committed relationship while I was being dumped. I was just dumped a couple of hours ago, but it didn't go how I thought it was supposed to go. In my view, I have been seeing this guy for a couple of months casually. Sometimes we see each other 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. We text but nothing in depth. We hang out, hook up, sometimes spend the night and rinse and repeat. I'm paraphrasing what happened today. He wanted to talk, so I met him for breakfast today at his place. He was very apologetic and sad and said, "This has been great getting to know you, but I don't think this is working out anymore." I basically said, "Okay, do you still want to have breakfast?" In my head, I was like, he's ending the casual relationship. It's fine, because we had this talk in the beginning about either of us ending it whenever. He just kept looking at me while we were eating, and finally he said, "You know you don't have to hold it in. It's okay to be sad." I was confused, so I said, "Why would I be sad? I enjoyed my time with you. It's ended." He then said, "Well, we were in a relationship, so it's not like ending a hookup." This is where I fucked up. I said, "Yay, but it was a casual relationship." He said, "What do you mean casual? We have been exclusive for over 3 months now." No, we haven't. We had never had a talk about being exclusive. We literally only met up to do fun activities and then hook up. When did we decide we were exclusive? My face showed that this was brand new information to me. He said, "We kept spending time together. It was implied that we were exclusive." No, it wasn't, and I told him that. He then asked if I had been seeing other people, to where I was just silent, which basically answered it for him. He started yelling and getting angrier because I wouldn't answer his questions, but I literally felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. It was too much information to process at once. I left because he was now saying I cheated on him. He's now blowing up my phone and saying that we have to talk because he's been loyal. While I haven't, I just don't even know what to say. Like, what? We never had a talk about exclusivity, TLDR. I was hooking up with a guy. He thought we were exclusive. I thought it was casual. He dumped me and then got mad that I cheated on him while we were exclusive. We never had a talk about being exclusive. I'm now hiding from him because he wants to talk. Top comments. Commenter 1. Communication is apparently a superpower nowadays. Commenter 2. This is the perfect scenario for a Seinfeld episode. Commenter 3. And George is definitely the man in this scenario. Commenter 4. I'd just text him. Tell him there's nothing to talk about. And in his next relationship, he should make it clear and not think, because he thinks something is implied, that it is. Then block him. Life is too short for drama. Update. I would be very surprised if this post wasn't deleted. But I made a post a few months ago about finding out I was in a committed relationship while being dumped. The post was deleted and I honestly forgot about making it. Basically, in the original post, I thought I had a FWB situation with a friend, but he thought it was something more, and when he was dumping me, I found out he thought we were exclusive for 3 months, and that us being in a relationship was implied, though we had never talked about being anything other than casual. Just to answer some questions. A. How were we able to see each other so much? We're college students. Our apartments are literally a street apart. We could go over to each other's all the time, whenever we wanted. B. What was the relationship like? We would literally text each other memes or funny things or ask when the other person was free to hook up. There was no in-depth convos, dates, or anything like that. Sometimes, we would hook up multiple times a week, sometimes once in 2 weeks. C. What were the fun activities? Movies, bowling, indoor golf, and just walking on a trail, etc. We're in college and not rich. D. Was what was expected discussed? Yes, in detail. Before we started a sexual relationship, we discussed what we expected, the rules, what we wanted, and what we would do if someone changed their mind. We both wrote the rules down in our phones, and the biggest rule was to communicate if something changed for you. How many PPL were you hooking up with? One other person, believe it or don't, but I had him and another person. If one was busy, another was usually available. F. Did he know you were hooking up with other PPL? I told him early on I was hooking up with another person, but I didn't explicitly tell him who that person was. I used protection, and I have been tested for both. After me leaving his apartment after the initial post, we didn't talk for months. I did a semester abroad, and he did an internship in another city, when we were both on the same campus again. I messaged him to discuss things. I asked him, did he really think we were in a committed relationship? He said no, though he was down for a FWB. Once he saw me talking to a guy at a bar, he got jealous and didn't want me talking to anyone else. Why did he act like we were in a committed relationship? Because he wanted to see my reaction. If I was hurt that he was ending it, then he would have changed his mind and gave it another chance, but exclusively this time. Was he hooking up with other PPL too? Yes. So he was never exclusive with me and made up the relationship angle as a lie. I honestly panicked in that initial conversation, and I apologized if I hurt him in any way. But until that point, I thought we had both been transparent with each other. Turns out, he didn't really like the idea of me hooking up with anyone else but him, and made up this committed relationship. We are now good and back to being platonic friends. TLDR, FUB dumped me and made me think he thought we were in a committed relationship. Turns out feelings on his end had changed and he didn't want me seeing other people. We talked it out and are now platonic friends. Edit. We barely see each other now. I haven't hooked up with him since before the breakup convo, and don't ever plan to do it again since I know there were feelings on his end that I don't reciprocate. I can see what he did was manipulative, but I don't really care to get an apology from him. I will just maintain my distance. I appreciate the concern though. Stories number 12. If I skip my brother's wedding because he uninvited my husband over a joke? My brother Jake, 32M, is getting married in 2 months and I'm 29. F's supposed to be a bridesmaid. Or I was supposed to be. Background. My husband Tim, 30M, and Jake have never really gotten along. They're just different people. Tim's quiet and kind of nerdy. Jake's loud and into sports. They've always been civil but not friends. Last month we had a family BBQ at my parents' house. Everyone was drinking, things were relaxed. Jake and his buddies were talking about the bachelor party, and one of them joked about strippers. Tim, trying to join in the conversation for once, made a comment like, "Well, at least you'll finally see a woman naked," or something dumb like that. It was obviously a joke. Everyone laughed, including Jake's fiancée Sarah. Tim doesn't usually joke around, so I was actually happy he was trying, but Jake got pissed. Like immediately in Tim's face saying, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" And Tim was like, "Dude, it was a joke. Relax." And Jake shoved him. My dad had to get between them. Jake stormed off and wouldn't talk to anyone for the rest of the day. I texted him the next day to smooth things over. He said Tim disrespected him in front of his friends, and that he never liked Tim anyway and now he has a reason. Then 3 days ago Sarah texts me. Says they've decided Tim is uninvited from the wedding. Just Tim. I can still come and be in the bridal party, but Tim has to stay home. I was like, absolutely not. If my husband isn't welcome, then neither am I. Sarah said I'm being dramatic and that Jake is the groom, so he gets final say on the guest list. I said that's fine. He can have his wedding without us then. Now my entire family is blowing up my phone. My mom is crying, saying I'm ruining Jake's wedding. My dad says Tim should just apologize. Jake sent me a long text about how I'm choosing sides and picking Tim over family. But here's the thing. Tim's joke was dumb, but it wasn't mean-spirited. Jake has said way worse shit to Tim over the years, and Tim never made it a big deal. Jake called Tim gay for not liking football literally at Christmas. I didn't see him getting uninvited from anything. And Tim is my husband. We've been together 8 years, married for 3. I'm not going to attend my brother's wedding alone while my spouse sits at home because Jake can't take a joke. My mom says I'm being stubborn and hurting the family. Sarah says I'm making the wedding about me. Even my sister thinks I should just go without Tim to keep the peace. But I think it's insane that they expect me to show up and smile in pictures while my husband is banned. So Wibta if I skip the wedding entirely? Am I being unreasonable here? Comments. Commenter 1 NTA. You're not ruining your brother's wedding. He's doing it himself. Just keep repeating. Either we both come out, neither do. It's Jake's choice. Make sure the family know that Jake said he never liked your husband, and that this is just an excuse to exclude him. Commenter 2 NTA. Your brother physically assaulted your husband over a mild joke. Then Yun invited your spouse from a family wedding, and your family is acting like you're the problem? Let's be real clear here. Jake shoved Tim. That's assault. Over a joke that everyone else laughed at, including the bride. Your brother has anger issues and has apparently been bullying your husband for years while you tried to keep the peace. Now he's demanding you show up to celebrate his marriage while explicitly excluding yours. That's not keeping the peace. That's accepting disrespect. Your mom can cry all she wants, but where was she when Jake was calling Tim slurs at Christmas? Where was your dad when Jake physically put hands on your husband? Commenter 3 NTA. Honestly, sounds like there's some deeper issues hidden inside Jake. And Tim is your family. He is literally your husband, so yes, you are choosing family over a wedding that who knows how long that marriage will last with Jake acting like that. I just make it clear to them in a card that you wish them the best. If it's really important for you to be there, they'll make sure you and Tim are there. And if not, then keeping a distance might be better for you and Tim in the future. Jake is definitely insecure, and possibly hiding something for an outburst like that. Commenter 4 Dude, NTA, fam or no fam? They can't expect you to ditch your husband like that. Jake needs to take a chill pill. Your hubby was joking, and if Jake can't see that, it's SM's moment. Stick to your guns, sis. You're totally in the right here. If they're blowing up your phone, a simple "I stand by my husband" should shut them up. Remember, you and Tim are a team. Bumpy ride or smooth sailing. Don't let them make you feel bad for doing what's right. Stories number 13. I found my biological father after 22 years of believing the horrible story my mother told me. TW, mention of SA and abuse. Other than brief mentions, I promise this is a happy story. Let's call me Fran. Call biological dad Rick. Call mother Danny. Biological dad's wife Kate. I've been trying to find him for a few years now. Pretty much since I turned 18, he is listed on my birth certificate, and I have facial features that just don't look like Danny's family. So I have always been curious. I was told his was an artificial insemination baby, my older brother was. And for a while there was no reason for me not to believe that. Until about middle school, I asked Danny to see my birth certificate. She told me no, but showed me my brother's. She said I couldn't for adult reasons. For about a week every day I would ask about the reason, like, is my name spelled wrong? Do I have a different birthday? Am I adopted? Was I born in a different place? Did you lose it? But every time her answer was no, finally I asked the last question I could think of. Is my sperm donor's name on there? And she flipped out. She had always been abusive, but she really went off when I said that. She showed me and cried and said I was an accident and the product of SA, that Rick was a horrible human, and asked, "Are you happy now that you made me relive this?" She didn't talk to me for days after that. I thought about that a lot, and she used it as ammo to make me feel bad often after I found out. So I mostly just dropped it. When I was in high school, I stayed a couple weeks at my bio-grandma's house and mentioned what had happened. She was shocked and said that Danny told her that they dated and just accidentally got pregnant, which was strange to me because as far as I knew she was a lesbian. But the story being different and Danny being a pathological liar made my curiosity really come back. I asked my aunt. She said Danny told her that they dated and forgot to use protection at a party one night. The outcome Danny told us for all 3 stories was the same. Rick is a bad guy, and he refused to be in Fran's life, and he hates us. Over the next couple of years, I did ask Danny about it every once in a while. Or I'd just ask about Rick. Nothing personal, just things like, do you know if he has diseases I could get genetically? Things that, to me, are important to know regardless of the situation. I also got a little bolder, and asked why the stories were different, which of course set her off. When I was 18, I started actually searching, I googled his name, searched on all the social medias, tried different shortened versions of his name ECT. I messaged many people who never messaged me back. That brings us to 3 days ago. I went online and paid to do a federal public record search of him. I had all the info I needed. Full name, month and year of birth, state of birth, and there was only one person who matched it all. So I did some digging and found out his wife's name Kate and his phone number. Current city job I know, very stalker creep vibes. From there I started searching for Kate as well. That led me to their shared Facebook, which would explain why I never found him. It was Rick Kate last name, so I messaged them at 2:45 a.m. and I said this: "Hi, this is Fran. I'm trying to contact Rick. That's who I was told is my biological father and who is on my birth certificate. Did you used to know Danny by any chance? Unfortunately, she is no longer in my life, and I just was wondering if I could ask a couple questions. I apologize for the very early in the morning text. I work overnight shifts, so this is when I am awake." And he replied at 3:24 a.m. this: "Good morning, Fran. My name is Rick. I am your biological father. I was hoping one day you'd find us. I'd love to answer any questions you might have. I have lots of questions too. No worries about the time. Work always gets me up early. When I tell you my heart stopped, that morning we had a video call, me and Rick and Kate, that lasts 2 hours. The story they told me was that Danny and Rick worked together for several months and became friends. Dee told R and Kate about the struggles of paying for artificial insemination and asked Rick to be a sperm donor the old-fashioned way. They said they would agree, but they would want to know me. Not as parents, but maybe as friends. Because for them it was as much a part of them as it was Danny. She agreed. At 8 months pregnant, she told them to stay away. They were very sad, but did their best to respect it. They tried to contact her for years after, and she always ignored them. When I was 4 and my brother was 5, Rick and Kate were finally able to get a hold of her, and they set up day dates. For 4 months at least 3 times a week they would take me and my brother to the zoo, to dinner, to the park, to Rick's parents, to their house, and we would play with their 2 younger kids too. Then all of a sudden one time they brought us back and Danny said, "I never want to see either of you again." And she moved states, and she changed her phone number. They continued to try to keep up with me from a distance. They said it felt like they were trying to butt in on a happy family. Danny told them that our family was perfect, and they were getting in the way. Rick and Kate said they didn't want to ruin that, so they'd check on Danny's social media and try to see pictures of me. They'd look on the news. When I got kicked out at 17 and charged as a runaway by Danny's girlfriend, they saw it and tried to find me too. I told them the story I was told, and they were literally speechless. I told them Danny severely abused me in every way imaginable, and she used that she didn't want me as amo often. Rick said, "I don't want you thinking you weren't wanted. You were not an accident. You were intentional and wanted." And Kate said, "You still are." It genuinely took everything for me to not cry right there. They told me their children know about me. Their families know about me. They talk about me often and wonder where I was and how I was doing. They are nice. We've been texting since then. They want to do another video call in a couple days and meet my husband and babies. He calls me kiddo. He said he's proud of me for moving past Danny. He asks about my life and what I like. He texted me yesterday when I got off of work at 6 a.m. and asked how my shift was. Rick, Kate, and I have a group chat that all this talking is being done in, so we're all involved. We constantly check on each other's thoughts and feelings and where our head are at. They told me they want to build a relationship but don't want to overstep or push for anything. They said they will be here for me and understand if I am not ready or if I don't want that. But I think I do. I am so overwhelmed, but I am happy and excited and scared. I also feel guilty because I am sad. I am sad about what I was told. I am sad I spent my whole life thinking Rick was bad. I am sad I missed out of having more siblings and a loving environment. I'm sad I wasn't able to find them sooner. And there's this voice from Danny's manipulation and conditioning my whole childhood that tells me I'm a bad person for trying to find him after what she told me. But I believe Rick and Kate. They remember the literal dates they would have us. They remember my brother's name, and they told their family about me anyway. This post is a whole book at this point. I just needed to get that out. Comments. Commenter 1. When my son got married, he and my DIL did the whole 23andMe thing. Shortly after their results came in, he was contacted by a woman who said she thought they were very closely related. I worked with my son at the time, so he was relaying this in real time. She said she thought her bio dad was one of my son's grandfathers. Said where and when she was born, and I knew immediately that it was my dad. After texting and talking on the phone, we determined she definitely is my half-sister. She's 2 years younger than me. It was a one-night stand, and she was given up for adoption at birth. We were both born in the same city in NY, but are both living in CA not too far away from each other. Long story, we met up for lunch one day. Yes, we look very similar. We get along great and have so much in common. As a bonus, we've added a half-brother that I knew about into our chats. It's been fun. Commenter 2. Paragraphs, no paragraphs, whatever. I read it all. I'm so sorry about your mom and all the stuff you endured growing up. I'm so glad this has a happy ending. Please take time to heal and reflect. I hope you consider a therapist to grow from this. Reply, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I'd need to do the double enter thing on my phone. But I fixed it. LOL, I am in therapy. Thankfully, commenter 3. This is a very sweet story. I'm so sorry you had to suffer not knowing R and K and what D did to you. Build that relationship, they seem genuine, and your babies will appreciate having extra grandparents too. Reply, I agree, I'm so happy for my babies, and so grateful they want to know them. Commenter 4, man. That's some heavy stuff right there. Life can be a real trip sometimes, huh? Just remember, it's okay to feel all mixed up about it. You've been through a lot. Trust in yourself, move at your own pace, even amidst all the chaos. It sounds like you've got some promising bonds to explore. Pretty cool if you ask me. Stay strong, kiddo. It's your story, it's unique, and it's just getting started. Much love, dude. Reply. Thank you, he's been calling me kiddo. I am excited to explore the new bonds. Stories number 14, Aita for ignoring my family after they excluded me from Christmas. I 29F have not been on great terms with my family for a long time. My mom has spent most of my life doing everything she can to tear me down, and as of now I haven't spoken to her in almost 3 years. I have an okay relationship with my brother 32M, and I love my dad even though he enables my mom and never stands up for me because he doesn't like to rock the boat. Until a few months ago I lived pretty close to my parents, but I recently moved across the country, and I don't have any friends or family anywhere near my new home. I love holidays and celebrations, but no one else in my family does. When I was younger they used to make fun of me or get frustrated when I would try to be festive around Christmas, and eventually I stopped trying. For the past decade, my family hasn't done anything for any holiday, and I have become okay with that. However, my brother, who lives in a different state, got divorced a couple years ago, and his ex took their house. So my parents bought a duplex in his town so that he could live on one side with my 4-year niece, and they could live part-time on the other. They still have their house in my hometown that they live in most of the year, but the last 2 years my parents have gone up to stay in their side of the duplex for the whole month of December. And they've celebrated Christmas with my brother and niece. Last year they didn't even tell me that they were going. I found out from my dad's FB. It hurt that they decided to celebrate Christmas all together and didn't even tell me. But I shook it off. This year, though, they did it again. My dad called me on Christmas Eve and told me how much fun they were having as a family, then asked me what I was doing for Christmas. I told him I was doing nothing. I don't know anyone in my new city and my family is all celebrating Christmas without me. He paused like he didn't consider that, then quickly got off the phone. He later sent me a selfie of them all together saying, "Merry Christmas from Brother's State." I didn't answer. Actually, I stopped answering at all. My dad and I usually talk 2 to 3 times a week to check in. But he's called me once and texted me twice, and I haven't answered since Christmas Eve 7 days ago. I've also not been posting on my socials, and given that I'm not answering him or posting, and I'm all alone in a city far away, he really doesn't know if I'm alive or dead. He texted me yesterday saying, "Please tell me if you're okay," and I haven't responded. I know it's petty, but I'm really hurt that I wasn't even thought of for the family holiday. Even if I was invited, I probably wouldn't have gone just because I don't want to be around my mom. But being left out entirely really hurts, and having them rub my face in it with their selfie is even worse. I've been ignored by my family for my whole life, and I'm tired of trying. I don't know how to say this to my dad, and I don't want to talk to him until I know what to say. AITA by maintaining my silence? Comments. Commenter 1. I can hear your pain in your words, and I'm sorry that you're going through this. However, if the situation with mom is that toxic, did you want to be invited? Just so that you could turn it down? The question is, what type of a relationship do you really want with brother and or dad, when it's unfortunately clear where their choice between you and mom seems to lay? I know that it's hard to build family, but it seems that that is what you need to do for yourself, especially now that you have space. Get involved in life in your new state. Volunteer. Pick hobbies that will you get out of the house and meeting people. Build the family that you want. Back to your question. You're NTA for wanting to separate yourself from a bad situation. And you're human in that you want that connection with your family, even when they treat you poorly. But expecting them to extend an invitation, knowing that you won't go, is being toxic to yourself. It's allowing you to wallow in the situation, rather than moving forward with your life. It's understandable that you want to ignore your family, and it may be time for a frank conversation with Dad. But before you do that, my question to you is, do you really want a full and complete break with Dad, even if temporary? Because that seems to be where you are, but hidden in your post is clearly the desire for connection with family. If so, something along the lines of, Dad, you know that my relationship with Mom has not been the best growing up. And while I do love you and want a relationship, it hurts to be constantly reminded that I've never been the priority. I know that you thought you were being kind, be reaching out and telling me how much fun you all were having together at Xmas. But in reality, it hurt that I was finding out after the fact and that I wasn't invited. It was salt in a wound, especially as I've just moved and don't have a set of friends here yet to celebrate the holidays with. I love you, Dad, but it's clear that you'll always choose Mom over me. I accept that that's just the way things are, but I need time and space to build my life and find friends to share it with without being reminded of what I don't have with Mom. The thing that you need to be careful of is that by drawing a line in the sand, he may take you at your word. Are you really ready for a full and complete break from your family? If not, you need to temper whatever message you send to him with clear expectations of what kind of contact that you do want. I'm open to checking in with you every couple of months. Or, I look forward to being in touch for birthdays. I wish you well as you navigate this challenge, and I hope you find the new family that you need. Commenter 2, I think we might have the same family. I'm the black sheep and it saddened me for years. I tried to be a part of the family, calling, sending presents, postcards, to no avail. I just wanted to be loved and accepted. When one of my brothers passed away, my dad called a week after his funeral and said, I thought you might want to know. This is when I knew I'd never be a part of this family. I decided to move on without them and live my life to the fullest. If they called, great, and if not, great. It was like a huge burden was lifted off my shoulders. The black cloud that followed me disappeared. They are toxic and dysfunctional. Mom has a mean streak and Dad is spineless, allowing her cruelty. There are some moms such as mine that only honor the boys and neglects the girls in the family. You don't need this shit. Move on without them. Let the pain go. It may take some therapy to heal. You have been traumatized your whole life. Focus on healing you. Focus on the life you envision for yourself. Love and celebrate you. You are special. You are strong to have endured such crap. I know the road you are on. The road less traveled, and it is a road full of adventure. Twists and turns, personal growth, and self-love. Celebrate Christmas. Put up a tree, decorate, put on some music, invite people over, or just relax and enjoy the atmosphere you created. Commenter 3 NTA. I would respond just so that they don't send police to your door. I think I would sit down and think about what you want this next year to look like. Maybe lean into your new city, forge new connections, try new things, etc. This is the tough part. You have decided to not have a relationship with your mom, which is absolutely fine. But it definitely impacts the relationships with your father and brother. They probably aren't going to exclude your mother from events, and because they know that you don't speak to her, that's probably why you aren't included. You might want to decide how you want to move forward. Is there anything your mom can do to make amends? Is therapy an option? Do you want to ask your dad and brother if they would celebrate with you privately before or after Christmas next year? Those are things that you might want to consider. Otherwise, it's likely this pattern will continue. Wishing you all the best in 2025, Commenter 4. I'd throw myself into building my own family in your new city. Check out clubs. Do you have a hobby? Gyms. Volunteer. You don't have plans on Christmas. Lend a hand at a shelter or a soup kitchen. You meet your people in many ways. Your dad. I don't think you owe him anything, at best. Send a text that says, I'm fine, but I don't want to talk to you right now. I'll be in contact when I'm ready. Get a therapist. Heal yourself. There is so much pain on what you wrote. Heal and go out there and live a wonderful life. Update. AITA for ignoring my family after they excluded me from Christmas? I didn't think my post from last year was that interesting, but a surprising number of people have asked me for an update. So here it is. After a couple weeks of radio silence, I followed some good advice from my original post and texted my dad to tell him it hurt my feelings that they left me out. He half apologized, and life went on. A lot of people pointed out that while my family was toxic, me ignoring my dad was also pretty toxic, and they were right. My family is super passive-aggressive, and that is the only way I'd ever learn to handle conflict. And to answer some more comments, I have been in therapy for about 6 years, and after last Christmas, I started working with my therapist on how to do healthier confrontation. It's still not something I'm super comfy with, but I'm getting better. I've also made a good number of friends in my new city, and am doing pretty well, all things considered. With my family, at the end of the day, nothing has changed. They didn't really acknowledge my 30th birthday in spring, and most recently, when I invited my dad to my grad school graduation next year, he told me that he couldn't commit to it right now, because he's waiting to see if something that he'd rather do comes up. My brother said he'd come, but he's already gone from a yes to a maybe, so I don't have high hopes. The good news is that it finally hurts less because I have more or less given up on having a real relationship with them. I'm never going to be loved or cared about by them the way I want to be, and I've come to accept that, as of now, I have no plans for Christmas this year. But it's okay, my family sucks. But I'm really lucky in my friends, and I'm grateful for that. Commenter 1. I'm sorry that things haven't really changed for you with the family. I'm a big believer in chosen family, especially when the bio family is toxic and inconsiderate. Stick to your friends. They'll help you move on completely. I think now that you've let go of the idea that your family is anything other than a bunch of self-centered jerks, it's going to be super freeing for you. Life is what you make of it, so make it awesome. P.S. Congrats on the upcoming graduation. Commenter 2. Why are you still in contact with the people exactly? They clearly don't like you nor want to be around you, so why bother? Commenter 3. A lot of people pointed out that while my family was toxic, me ignoring my dad was also pretty toxic, and they were right. Ignore them. Their advice only devalues your abuse. Commenter 4. It's unfortunate that you have an apparently indifferent family. It sounds like you are creating a great life for yourself by completing an advanced degree, and you mentioned that you have friends that matter to you. I would just concentrate on making my life complete and forget these people. I wouldn't go out of my way to visit them, or even to contact them. Ultimately, what will happen is that they are going to need something from you, and all of a sudden you will be contacted and will be treated royally. I would just ignore these overtures and continue to live my best life without these sycophants. Stories number 15. Tifu. By forgetting that I let my little niece do my makeup. Obligatory not today, lol. It was a while ago. I'd spent the night at my sister's house babysitting my niece 6-year and my nephew 9-year. While my sister was out with friends for the weekend, my niece is your stereotypical girly girl, loves the color pink and enjoys cheerleading, dresses, and makeup. She'd begged me to let her do my makeup the whole time I was there. I don't even wear makeup in my day-to-day life. I just don't like it, so I kept putting it off. Finally, on the morning I was supposed to be leaving, I allowed my niece to have at it. Oh man, she was so excited. She has kid makeup meant for little kids to play with. It's real makeup, it's just made with organic, non-toxic materials that are easy to wash off. Play makeup? I don't know how else to describe it. But I'm sure that the majority of women here know what I'm talking about, lol. She did my blush, eyeshadow, lipstick, and mascara. Mascara in kid makeup is basically just water or baby oil. She thought it was beautiful. I encouraged her and told her she was really great at doing makeup. It made her whole day. I never looked in a mirror or anything. My head was hurting, so I just chilled on the couch while this was going on. Her grandma pulled up outside shortly after this to pick up my niece and nephew. I hugged and kissed them goodbye and sent them on their way. I plopped back down on the couch, took my migraine pills, and had a nap. I woke up maybe an hour later and got my things together to leave. I hopped in my car and started driving down the road. I heard the ping indicating my gas light just came on, so I stopped at the first gas station I saw. I'd never been in that specific gas station before, but I needed gas, so I wasn't going to be picky. I parked and walked in to pay. A female cashier took care of me. I walked up to the counter and told her I'd like to pay for gas on pump number whatever. She starts ringing it up, and I start digging through my wallet for my debit card. As I'm doing that, the cashier says, "You look absolutely beautiful." And I'm not gonna lie, I actually turned around to see if she was talking to someone behind me. LMAO. She said, "No, I'm talking to you. You look beautiful today." I was kinda confused, but said, "Oh, thank you so much." I paid and went back outside to pump my gas. By the time I got back into my car, I was like, hell yeah. Maybe I am looking real good today. I'd only thrown my hair up in a ponytail and changed my clothes earlier. But if a random person told me I was beautiful, maybe I'm looking good. So I just decided to be happy about the compliment. I put my car in reverse and glanced up at my rearview mirror before starting to back up. But I caught something unexpected and had to do a double take. I slowly looked back into the mirror and, to my horror, I was still wearing the makeup my niece had done earlier. Bright blue eyeshadow clear up to my eyebrows. Bright red sparkly blush laid on thick on my cheeks. Bright pink lipstick applied haphazardly to my lips. Smeared to the side and everything. I slowly turned my eyes back forward and put my head down on the steering wheel in absolute embarrassment. Lol. My face certainly got hot when I mentally replayed the interaction with the cashier, though you probably couldn't tell through all the makeup info. I took a deep breath and got back on the road, and I washed it all off when I got back to my house. I've never been back to that gas station since this incident. That cashier probably told all her coworkers about the crazy lady who didn't know how to do her own makeup. Lol. TLDR, I let my niece do my makeup, forgot about it, and then went into a gas station with blue eyeshadow up to my eyebrows. The cashier told me I was beautiful. Comments commenter 1. One of my mom's favorite stories to tell is how she let me play dress up with her and put on all these necklaces, sequins, bracelets. She forgot she was wearing them and went to the grocery store. Everyone there was super kind to her and talked to her like she was a child. Then she realized, LOL, in a few years it will be a funny story to embarrass your niece with. Commenter 2. She is a kind person who knows what she thought, but she didn't say it with sarcasm. She just complimented you. If you ever go back, do you think she will recognize you? If you go back and she is there, tell her and have a laugh together. Let her know how good you felt hearing her say you looked beautiful and tell the story from your side. It really is a hilarious story. Commenter 3. This is like the time I forgot my daughter had done my hair with all kinds of braids and clips. When the guy who did our trees came to the door to be paid, he kept staring at my head while I was paying, which I thought was strange. But he didn't tell me I was beautiful. I'm the dad. And of course, my daughter was nowhere to be seen. Commenter 4. I have something similar, but it's 21-year-old me doing my 5-year-old cousin's makeup. Sometimes when I'm bored, I do my own makeup. My cousin was over and asked me to do her, but make it dramatic. So I did. Neon pink lipstick, gold sparkly eyeshadow. And then she asked me to draw a lizard with eyeliner on her forehead. I drew it and she was so happy. She did mine too. After a few hours of us just hanging out with our crazy makeup, her mom said she had to get ready for a birthday party. My cousin took off the makeup but demanded to keep the lizard. Good thing the party theme was wild animals. Stories number 16. Found out my male coworker makes $18K more than me for the same job, and I'm spiraling. We have this stupid thing at work where they post salary ranges for open positions on the internal job board. I was looking at openings in other departments yesterday and saw they're hiring for my exact role in a different location. Same title, same responsibilities, same requirements. The range was 72K, 90K. I make 64K. I've been here for 4 years. My coworker Jake started 6 months after me and I trained him. Like literally sat with him for 2 weeks showing him how everything works because our boss was too busy. Yesterday we were talking about the new hire posting, and he mentioned he was curious what they were offering since it might be more than what we make. I said, yeah, probably knowing this company. And he just casually says, well, I'm at 82, so if it's more than that, I might apply. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom because I felt like I was going to throw up. $82,000. He makes $18,000 more than me. We have the same job title. We've been here basically the same amount of time. The only difference is I've been here longer and have better performance reviews because I've actually seen them. We were in a meeting once when our boss pulled them up by accident. I went home and cried for like an hour. My boyfriend thinks I should march into HR on Monday, but I'm terrified. What if they fire me for fit or some bullshit? What if they say it's because Jake negotiated better? What if they have some reason that technically makes sense and I just feel stupid? I checked my offer letter from 4 years ago. Starting salary was $58K, so I've gotten what, $6K in raises over 4 years? That's pathetic. And Jake clearly started way higher than I did. The worst part is I asked for more during my last review in March. I brought data about market rates, and my boss gave me this whole speech about budget constraints and how everyone's in the same boat. But apparently Jake's boat is $18K nicer than mine. I can't stop thinking about all the times I've stayed late or covered for people or taken on extra projects. I planned the entire department retreat last year on top of my regular work. I created the training documentation we use for new hires. The same docs I used to train Jake. My boyfriend keeps saying this is discrimination and I should threaten to sue, but that feels so extreme. Like maybe there's an explanation I'm missing? I haven't been able to focus on anything since yesterday. I keep running the numbers in my head. 18K is like, that's my car payment and groceries and most of my rent. That's the money I don't have for therapy or saving for a house or literally anything. Do I say something? Do I start looking for a new job? I actually liked working here until yesterday, and now I feel so stupid and angry. And I don't know if I'm overreacting. Comments, Commenter 1. The only way to get the current market rate is to get a different job. The days of working hard and getting ahead at one place are dead and gone. Commenter 2, girl, I was in the same boat with you. I just didn't know it. I started quietly looking for a new position, just putting out feelers. Ended up getting recruited with a position custom created for me that put me at 40K more than I was making. Last day of work, my male colleague, whom I like but had less experience, dropped that he made 20K more than me. Solidified my decision to leave. You obviously have the skills and experience to be making the money you deserve. Apply for the other position, but don't limit yourself to this one company. You are worth every penny and more. Commenter 3. The best way to get a raise is to get a new job. There is no point in loyalty to any company anymore because they do shit like this and keep wages stagnant. Apply for other jobs and lie to them saying your current salary is 82K. They'll try to match that and boom, you just got a 20K raise. You could even bring that offer to your current company without disclosing the new company's name and see if they'll match it to keep you. But chances are if it's a steep jump, they won't. Leave then. Coached my husband through this a few years back and he doubled his salary in 3 years, simply by changing jobs 2 times. Obviously, you need a career type of job. You can't do this if you work for minimum wage, but it sounds like you could easily benefit from this. Commenter 4. I can't stop thinking about all the times I've stayed late or covered for people or taken on extra projects. I planned the entire department retreat last year on top of my regular work. I created the training documentation we use for new hires. The same docs I used to train Jake. Stop covering for people. Definitely stop planning things like department retreats. The documentation you can use as an argument to show you're delivering over and above usual expectations for the role. Be strategic about what extra work you take on and why. Every additional task has to have a good answer to the question, what's in it for me? How will this make me look better? Edit to add. Use the time you save to update your CV. Upskill where you can, and start applying for other jobs. Go to interviews. Even if you are not 100% sure of the job, get interviewing practice. Stories number 17. Aita, for never inviting my stepsister to my grandparents' house when I know they make the most of their time with me and my brother. My family is blended. My mom has me 16F and my brother 19M. My stepdad has my 3 stepbrothers 17, 12, 11 and my stepsister 15. My mom and stepdad were both widowed when they met. I was 3 when my dad died and my brother was 6. We were 6 and 9 when mom remarried. My mom and dad's family never got along, and when she started dating my stepdad, she tried to cut us off from our dad's whole family, which forced my grandparents to fight for grandparents' rights, and they won 3 days a month of visitation. The visitation has always been a touchy subject with my mom and stepdad. They don't like that we have access to a whole bunch of family who only included me and my brother. It was worse when my grandma and aunts would take me and my girl cousins out for girly days. My stepsister started getting jealous because we're not close anyway. And then I was doing girly stuff she always wanted to do with me with others. I just never wanted to do girly stuff with her. She had no real sisters either, so she got tired of it being mostly boys. And I always loved having a brother, so didn't miss the sister stuff like she did. Our grandparents and dad's side in general did other stuff with us. Trips to the beach, taking us to nice restaurants, amusement parks and other fun stuff. They bought us stuff too, but mostly they focused on taking us places or experiences. We never invited our step-siblings, and my stepsister wanted to be invited a lot. Mostly to the girly stuff times. But in general, she wanted to be included, and I never wanted to include her. My mom would bring it up to me when my stepsister wasn't around, and she would show her frustration when I didn't change my mind or invite her next time. Last week my mom got so mad over it for the first time. My stepsister asked me why I never invite her to my grandparents, so we can do girly stuff with my grandma, aunts and cousins, and I told her because I don't want to. My mom was furious, and she told me never inviting her is a huge problem when I know how much she wants to do that stuff. She told me I don't do it any other time, so I should invite her for that reason alone. That I should want to make my sister instead of stepsister, which is what I always say she is happy, and I shouldn't make this a bigger source of rejection for her, but I could never manage that. She said it's cruel to know someone wants to be included and to never include them. Commenter 1. Tell your mom that it's her and her husband's fault. They're the reason the grandparents have only a few days of visitations. They are the reason for how things are. If she wants her stepdaughter to do girly stuff, then she can do it with her. Commenter 2. Your mom's fault. She doesn't want to get along with your dad's family. She is forced by court to let you see them. If you were a big happy family, things would be different. You would have family events together, but she chose to make it harder. And now she wants the cow and the price of the cow. No, ma'am. Commenter 3. Why can't your mum do all the girly stuff with her if she cares so much? It's not your responsibility, even if you were biological sisters and you paternal family has no connection to your stepsister at all. Reply, because she wants me to do what my stepsister wants and give her the chance to do it with me. Commenter 4. I'm confused by this. Your mother, who didn't want your grandparents in your life in the first place, now expects you to include her stepdaughter when you do things with them. Makes no sense. Reply, I know. But my mom is like, well, if they do it with you, she should be included when she wants to be. Stories number 18. My coworker keeps translating what I say in meetings like I'm invisible. So, I've got this coworker. Let's call him Dan. Every time I speak up in a meeting, he feels the need to rephrase what I just said. Example, I'll say, we should probably merge those two reports to avoid duplicate work. Dan immediately jumps in. Yeah. What OP means is we can optimize our reporting process by consolidating data streams. Like, dude, that's literally what I just said. In English, it's gotten to the point where other people look at him like, but he keeps doing it. Sometimes my manager even credits him for ideas I already said out loud minutes earlier. Because he's the one who reframed it. I don't want to be petty, but it's infuriating watching someone basically run your sentences through Google Translate for visibility points. How do you even call that out without sounding confrontational? Like, thanks Dan, but I just said that? Or do I just let him keep doing his little TED Talk summaries? Relevant comments? Commenter 1. Yes, that's exactly what I just said. Every single time, be petty, watch him squirm until he stops doing it. Reply. Yeah, I think you're right. I've been trying to play it cool. But maybe a little petty consistency is the only way he'll realize how ridiculous it sounds. Commenter 2, be petty, call him right out on it. Or you can pull him aside and ask him why he does it, or if he notices. Then, if he takes no ownership of it and does it again, you turn up the pettiness to 1000% and call him out in front of everyone. You would have given him the chance to get ahead of it, but he didn't. So now he should get what he deserved. Reply, I think I'll try the polite route first. But I swear if he rephrases me one more time, I'm going full petty core in front of everyone. Commenter 3, call him out on it. No, Dan, what I meant is exactly what I said. Why are you rephrasing everything? You don't seem to understand. Do you need me to explain it again? Commenter 4, I hate when men do this. I like to say, thanks Dan. I appreciate your agreement on my proposal, idea, suggestion. Do you have anything to add? Update. So a week ago I posted about my coworker, Dan, who has this lovely habit of repeating everything I say in meetings like he's my personal interpreter. Most of you told me to call it out directly, so I did. We were in our weekly sync. I made a point about how to streamline our reporting process. And like clockwork, Dan jumped in with his version 2 seconds later, so I turned to him calmly, BTW, and said, Dan, was something unclear about what I said? You seem to repeat my points a lot, and I'm wondering why. You could have heard a pin drop. The entire room went quiet. He stammered something about just trying to add clarity, and before I could even respond, my manager cut in with, whoa, what's going on here? Dan always contributes great ideas. Are you feeling a little defensive? Defensive. Because I asked someone to stop parroting me, and then he said, you don't need to compete with your teammates. We're all on the same side. I swear I just sat there blinking like, what dimension am I in? He's literally repeating my ideas and getting credit, and somehow I'm the jealous one? To make it worse, every guy in the room suddenly got very interested in their laptops. No one said a word. I'm the only woman on the team. And it honestly couldn't have been more textbook if it tried. So yeah. Instead of solving the problem, I've apparently become the emotional one. I'm documenting everything now because I'm not letting this slide quietly again. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I remember your post and had commented at that time. I'm sorry your approach fell flat. You may well find that. Now you have called it out. Dan may mysteriously stop parroting you. Whether he does or doesn't, I think you should approach your manager about it one-to-one. After their reaction to the scenario, you have perfect grounds to open a dialogue about it and articulate perfectly well why you spoke up to Dan and that you feel he frequently recycles your thoughts and takes the credit. Be humble. Explain that you are very much a team player, but also the impact that Dan's behavior is having on you. Wish you the best. OP reply, thank you, seriously. I really appreciate how you phrased that. It's level-headed and fair, which is hard to be when you're frustrated. I've been debating whether to talk to my manager again, but I think framing it calmly like you said as impact, not accusation, might actually get through. I don't want to seem defensive. I just want credit for the work I actually do. OOP on trying to do the right things. Reply. It's wild how standing up for basic fairness somehow turns into being difficult or emotional. You try to do the right thing, and suddenly you're the problem. It really does start to make you question if caring is worth it sometimes. Commenter 2. I personally would have addressed that one-on-one, and not on a team meeting, but maybe I'm about to get downvoted. Reply. I probably should have done it one-on-one, but in the moment it just hit that breaking point where I was tired of being talked over in front of everyone. It wasn't about drama. I just wanted it to stop. Commenter 3. Whatever you do, make sure you have written or recorded documentation going forward. Any discussion you have, immediately send an email with a recap of the conversation. I'm the only woman in my team too. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. Reply. I've started documenting everything after this, just to have a record in case it gets twisted again. It sucks that so many of us even need to think that way just to feel safe at work. I'm sorry you're in the same position too. Commenter 4. Hopefully Dan catches on, but if he keeps doing, give him an intro, and here's Dan to mansplain what I just said. Reply. I was so tempted to do exactly that. The amount of self-control it took not to say, and now for Dan's live translation, was unreal. If he keeps it up, I might just have to lean into the sarcasm a little. Stories number 19. My kid tripped and dented a car at a dealership. They want me to pay $1,500. My girlfriend was looking for a new car and my son was being a knucklehead. He's a big kid, almost 6 foot, 200 lbs at 13. He thought it'd be funny to try and give my other son and my girlfriend's son a piggyback ride at the same time. He tripped and put his head into the fender of a brand new $50K car, rippling the fender. He's fine. Bruised his tongue and his pride, having a little integrity, trying to set a good example for my kids, and knowing we were on camera and it was my girlfriend's car license plate they would have read. I called into the manager to report it. I asked if they had insurance to cover something like this. Knowing full well they did, the manager lied and said no, and proceeded to send me the auto body bill for $1,500, which states that it was paid by insurance. If insurance paid for it, wouldn't it be the insurance company that would be coming after me? I feel like they're just trying to squeeze me for $1,500, and then the insurance company will do the same. At this price it'd be small claims. So should I even worry about getting a lawyer? They only have my first name and phone number. Comments, commenter 1. I wouldn't do anything at this point because it was covered by insurance, and you are right. The insurance company may very well come after you. If you were to pay the dealer, they would be double dipping and you might get stuck paying for it again later. So I would definitely wait and see what happens. It is, however, your responsibility because your son's negligence caused the damage. Reply? That's what I'm leaning toward. I was kindly reminded by my ex-wife that I have a free legal consultation through work, and I'm double-checking on Monday. Commenter 2, not a lawyer, but do work in auto body repair. Not sure if this is the case here, but a lot of estimating softwares do say insurance pay on their estimates to differentiate from the deductible that the customer owes. I'm not saying this is the case here, but I often have to explain to people that insurance pay is just a way of saying how much is owed less the deductible. Not always actual insurance. If you upload a photo of the bill, I can look at it and see what it means. Commenter 3. If the dealer's insurance has already paid the repair bill, this is insurance fraud. I'm sure the insurance company would be interested to hear about this. Commenter 4. Just a thought or question. If the car was damaged and had to have auto body repair work, wouldn't that affect the dealer's ability to sell the car if new, since now it no longer has a clean Carfax? Now it has to sold as a damaged vehicle. Personally, I wouldn't buy a brand new car that had bodywork done. Stories number 20. AITA for refusing to visit my parents because they won't accommodate my daughter. Me 35F and my wife 50F have a 5-year-old daughter, Mia. Mia was adopted at birth and has been the best thing to come into me and my wife's life. Mia doesn't have a proper diagnosis yet, but the doctor is pretty sure she is autistic. We are currently in the process of getting her officially diagnosed so she can get support at school. One of Mia's biggest issues is textures, and especially textures around her feet. She hates walking on carpets that feel funny, and will often make one of us carry her if the floor feels wrong. Recently, my parents updated their house and put in new carpet. When I took Mia over for a visit, she had a meltdown over the carpet's texture, and I had to carry her around the house the entire visit. I messaged Mum a few days ago and offered a solution so Mia could come over and play. We would buy her a brand new pair of shoes just for inside the house so she can comfortably walk on the carpet without any issues. My mum thinks that this will ruin the carpet and has refused my idea. I told her it's either the shoes or they come over to ours to visit Mia, as she will not step foot on that carpet without her shoes on. I'm now supposedly a bad daughter for not trying to come up with any other solution, even though I have thought about it, and this is genuinely the only thing I can think of. Mia can only wear one brand of shoe in one specific style, so slippers are out of the question. Comments. Commenter 1. I think the shoe thing makes sense. My wife and I were invited to a party a while back. They mentioned to my wife that they don't allow shoes in their house. I cannot go without shoes due to multiple foot surgeries. I just took a pair of shoes and washed the bottoms thoroughly. Hosts were fine with it, and I was a stranger. The shoes will not ruin her previous carpet. Commenter 2. As the father of an autistic child, the accommodation you suggested was so simple and would not have hurt anyone or even the carpet. You are being a good parent. Shame yours isn't. There is an AH in this story. OP, it just isn't you. Commenter 3 NTA. Your parents are. You have asked for a very reasonable and easy to accommodate solution to be able to let her spend time with Gran and Granddad. They are being ignorant and ableist. Did you ask them if a carpet is really more important than getting to see their granddaughter? I would not go there anymore in protest on her behalf if I was her parent. Reply, that's what I plan on doing. I won't be bringing Mia over at all and probably won't visit myself unless they accommodate Mia. Commenter 4 NTA Autistic Woman here. Your solution was an excellent one. It completely solved the texture issue. For us, sensory overstimulation is not a minor inconvenience, like it is for neurotypical people. The stress it causes can cause a meltdown that ruins our whole day. Your daughter's health takes priority, and if they refuse to let her use accommodations to make their home feel safe to her, it is best not to meet at that location. Reply. I've been doing research on that, and I've heard comments from other autistic people that it feels like needles whenever they touch something that's the wrong texture. It's fascinating how everyone's bodies handle different textures. Stories number 21. I told him I wouldn't have sex with him anymore if he would ever vote for a pro-life candidate. Some interesting and I think positive news to share. I remember reading somewhere on social media that women should just start refusing sex with men who vote for pro-life candidates' measures and watch how quickly they change their minds. Well, that was like a year or two ago, and I didn't give it much thought. But I have a long-term FWB. We've talked about abortion before. I knew that if I got pregnant he would want to keep it. And he knew that if I got pregnant, I would have an abortion. He's Christian. I'm agnostic. But he's the kind of Christian that Jesus would actually chill with if he was alive. He and I had also had conversations about pro-life versus pro-choice policies, and came, I thought, to an agreement that if you want to prevent abortions, an abortion ban does more harm than good, and there are plenty of other ways to be pro-life. Sex education, access to birth control, paid leave for parents, living wages, that are proven to be more effective. Cue my surprise when we're on a 2-week trip across Europe together, and he says that if a political candidate is pro-life, they are almost guaranteed to get his vote. We went back and forth for a long while, very heated convo, and we're usually very chill people who can have difficult conversations calmly and with respect. I was furious and hurt, and couldn't understand why he would vote for a policy that would have deeply negative effects on me, not even to mention others who would be hurt by it. Eventually I got so fed up that I told him, in no uncertain terms, that we would not have sex ever again after hooking up for over a year if he would ever vote for a pro-life candidate. I said I didn't care if he was pro-life, but so long as he was willing to vote to turn that personal belief into law that would deeply harm me and thousands, if not millions of others, we were never going to fuck again. It would be disingenuous to say he changed his mind immediately, but it did make him take the conversation a whole lot more seriously. After hours more of convo, he, in his words, said he realized that he could be both pro-life and pro-choice. He didn't have to change his values. but his values didn't have the right to impede on others' right to govern themselves. So, I think there's something legit to this idea that not fucking pro-life voting men will make them more likely to change their minds. It didn't change his instantly, but it made him a fuck of a lot more willing to listen and engage in a respectful conversation. And eventually he changed his mind. I'm proud of my boundaries. I didn't set the no sex if you vote for pro-life boundary with the intention of changing his mind. Every ounce of my being was repulsed by the idea of being with a man who would vote for the Handmaid's Tale-like future that I had so clearly laid out for him, and I meant it with all my heart. But it did strike exactly at one of the things he cares about the very most: sex. And it is ultimately the reason we had the conversation that changed his mind. On a final note, I had another very long and tough conversation with my dad about abortion early into Trump's second term. He's a 3-time Trump voter. At the end of our convo, he said, "Well, I guess if I had to choose, I would say I'm pro-choice, that's all. My little moments of victory, I'm not changing the world, but between boundaries and willingness to have hard conversations, I have changed the minds of 2 hardcore pro-life voters. And that feels good." Commenter 1. I was thinking of what a hypocrite he is. He knows that if she were to get pregnant, she would abort. So every time they have sex, there's a non-zero chance of her getting pregnant, and he's okay with that. Meaning he's willing to risk having an abortion occur for him to get off. In the meantime, he's advocating for women to have no choice in the matter. So he either thinks he'll force her to keep it, or he's okay with abortion as long as it means he can have access to sex. This seems like the mindset of a lot of men these days. Commenter 2, I'm asking very genuinely, what do you get out of dating a man who believes this? You say he's the kind of Christian Jesus would like. But a man who votes for the pro-life party in the US right now is not actually a Jesus values-aligned Christian. Not to rain on the parade, but I'm not sure how this is a win. Men lie all the time for sex. The man who assaulted me was a leftist and women's rights activist, but also a liar and a sex pest. If this man can vote for the American Christian Conservative Party just because they're pro-life but overlook their racism, classism, sexism, etc., why is him just saying, "Okay, I won't vote for the pro-lifers. Now let's have sex" a good thing? Personally, him having this opinion at all would simply be a deal-breaker for me. You don't have to save this man. Follow through on your threat and find someone who isn't a whole ideological project. Commenter 3. Men generally being pro-life isn't about freedom or looking out for the unborn, because if conservatives really cared about the unborn, then their economic policies would reflect this. No, it's solely about control. The GOP talk about freedom of the individual, but like most of the planks of their platform, it's both repressive and dripping with hypocrisy and application. I'll leave it to the women here to advise you on whether or not this guy is telling you the truth or not. I've never been in any of your collective shoes. Commenter 4. TBH, if he's willing to change his entire values in the course of less than a day. I question his integrity and suspect he switches back in the voting booth. Or B, he's lying to have sex with you. Either way, withholding sex was the only thing that mattered enough to change his mind. I'm glad you had the conversation. Maybe he'll take more time to reflect. I sure wouldn't jump in bed with him or any dude who would be willing to impregnate me and force me to give birth. Stories number 24. Aita for describing my Mill's birthday cake as kinda gay. I don't even know where to begin, so I'm 27. F married to 28. F, yeah, we're lesbians. We've known each other for 7 years and have been married for 4. We were each other's first kiss, first love, first everything. I will call my lovely wife Emma from here on out for clarity. My Mill has always been vocal about her dislike for me and the fact that Emma married a woman. She was initially supportive when Emma came out, but I think she was hoping Emma would suddenly turn straight and decide to marry a man, reverting back to the God-fearing housewife state. When Emma and I first started dating, she would make subtle digs about how I wasn't good enough for Emma. But the neighbor's kid Brandon sure was. When MIL realized we were getting serious, she tried to sabotage our relationship by accusing me of cheating, being after their inheritance, being a psychopath because I have chronic social anxiety, and other completely outrageous things. We were pretty fed up with her at that point, and since we both had jobs set up for us, Emma and I moved in together in a city about 100 miles away from Emil. Since we got a lot closer during that time, I guess I have MIL to thank for accelerating my relationship with my love. MIL wasn't invited to our wedding because she threatened to make a scene and bring her own groom for Emma. I highly doubt she would have, but we didn't want to chance ruining our day, So here's the current situation, and where I may be TA, Emma and I went to Mill's birthday party yesterday. We only visit her once a year for Emma's sake. We brought her some nice crystal wine glasses as a present. She was making snide comments about our relationship. Everything was going as expected. Mill's boyfriend brought out her cake, which was a chocolate cake covered in pastel rainbow flowers. I commented to Emma perhaps a bit too loudly, "Rainbow cake is looking kinda gay. Maybe she's finally coming around," and Emil absolutely blew up. She was screaming at us that it was disgraceful that I said she was gay, and that we even wore our wedding rings to her party when we knew that she didn't like to see them. She was yelling at Emma that she shouldn't have brought me, because I'm a disgusting reminder that Emma isn't right in the head. Emma was fuming and close to tears, so we left immediately after. Emma said she doesn't blame me at all and no longer wants contact with her mother. Emma's cousins, grandparents, and uncle are blowing our phones saying that what I said was wrong and disrespectful and that we are horrible people, especially since Mil has high blood pressure issues, and I was just trying to aggravate her. And I don't feel bad that I did. But I feel awful that I made Mil say those horrible things to my wife, and that Emma is currently no contact with her mother, who she was quite close to before we were married. Relevant comments. Commenter 1 NTA. You didn't make your Mill say those things. She said them by herself and you two are better off without her. Reply. That was my gut feeling, but my wife's whole family has been harassing us non-stop since yesterday, and I'm feeling kind of frazzled. Commenter 2. Wow, her mom is super strongly invested into the hate. And her whole family, as it seems to NTA, as all that comment was commenting that maybe her mom was accepting of her daughter. Reply. The weird thing is, 10 years ago when my wife came out to Mil, she was super supportive and accepting. But once my wife started dating girls, things kinda went downhill from there. Commenter 3. So Mil can mentally and emotionally abuse Emma, but you can't joke about a cake. Wonderful in-laws, SNTA. It seems like no one in that family can handle you and your wife are happy and gay. Reply. Yeah, I really was not expecting that harsh of a response from Mil. I wanted to annoy her since she'd been rudely commenting about my wife and I all day, but I wasn't expecting her to completely explode. Commenter 4 NTA. If it wasn't the rainbow cake comment, then it would have been something else eventually. I feel for your wife though. I'm sure this is difficult for her. Reply. After reading through these comments, it does look like she was just trying to pick a fight. She always does this, picking apart what we wear and how we show off our wedding bands. My wife and I deliberately refrain from any affection apart from holding hands in her presence. I'm glad my wife was able to cut her off finally. Edit. In case anyone wants to know what the cake looked like, I unfortunately did not get a photo. I did, however, find some similar-looking floral cakes from this company. But Meals had pastel rainbow flowers on the top and pastel stripes on the sides. Edit 2. I am so sorry. I'm really worn out and I think I'm just going to go to bed. I apologize if I didn't reply to your comment yet. I've read all of them, and I'll try to respond in the morning. I didn't expect so many comments so soon. Updated Edit 3. I don't know how to make an update, so I'll just post another edit here. I woke up to an overwhelming amount of replies. I didn't think this many people would see the post. I'm sorry that I couldn't reply to everyone. My wife has decided to go permanently no contact with Mil, and low contact with much of her extended family. The only family member who has been supportive of us so far is her older sister. She's truly a lovely person. I don't know how Sil and my wife are such kind people despite being raised by Mil. I understand I was wrong for making the gay cake comment, and that it only served to enrage my Mil. But my wife and I were talking yesterday, and she said she would have commented that the cake looked gay, even if I hadn't, though it definitely would have gone over better had my wife said it instead of me. We're ultimately happy with the outcome, and that we no longer have to attend any incredibly toxic family events with Mill. As a side note, my wife has told me that she never felt terribly close to her mother, so my comment about them being close before our marriage was incorrect, but that the hour-long calls she would have with her mother were just very one-sided conversations, where her mother would rant about her day and our relationship, never asking or caring about my wife. Wifey and I have ordered our own gay cake from a lovely local bakery that is also run by lesbians as a treat for the abuse we've had to endure over the years, and as a toast for better meal-free years to come. Thank you to everyone who commented and gave their insights. I'm glad this was resolved so quickly. Yesterday I was feeling awful about my own behavior during the party, especially since so many extended family members we coming forward to argue on Mil's behalf. I was sad that this event caused my wife to go no contact with her mother. Ultimately, I see that it was largely MIL's fault and that my wife's extended family are a bunch of sheep. Thank you again, everyone. Stories number 24. How do I tell an old friend she's not a bridesmaid or invited without upsetting her? Help. Bit of a rant, but I need some advice. I recently got engaged and knew exactly who I wanted to be my bridesmaids. I've already asked them, and they all said yes. The issue is, after I made an announcement on social media, an old friend reached out to congratulate me. We went to high school together and used to be best friends. But towards the end of year 9, I started to distance myself because she was quite controlling about our friendship and would get upset if I spent time with anyone else. We stayed on polite terms for the rest of high school. More of a quick nod and passing kind of friendship. We also worked at the same place until the end of high school, but our shifts rarely overlapped, so we barely saw each other. Anyway, after she congratulated me, she started messaging me about catching up since it's been at least 2-3 years since we've seen each other. Then she made a comment about needing to look online for a bridesmaid dress. Not only do I not want her as a bridesmaid, but I also wasn't planning on inviting her to the wedding. Not because it's a small ceremony, but because we're simply not close anymore, and I don't want to reconnect. I know whatever I say might hurt her feelings. But is there any way to say it that sounds a little less harsh? Comments. Commenter 1. First, I take a moment internally to confirm you truly have no interest in maintaining this relationship in any capacity going forward. Unfortunately, however you proceed probably won't be able to become undone. Obviously, you don't have to ask her to be a bridesmaid, and maybe not even to the wedding. But make sure you're totally okay with shutting down any chance of reconnecting with this friend in the future, or having a cordial relationship with them. I would proceed differently if that's the case. Assuming you're okay with completely ending the friendship, I'd respond once to nip any "did she get a new number" or "miss my message" potential. Say something to the effect of "thank you for the well wishes. Fiancé and I are keeping the wedding and bridal party intimate, note not small. Wish you the best, and ignore any more messages unless you absolutely must respond. Commenter 2. This is a fantastic response, and it's way better than the top one UOP that says, "Unfortunately, we didn't invite you," as this implies there's something wrong with the friend. I would say, thank you very much for your message. We are keeping the wedding really intimate, and I have already chosen my bridesmaids. However, I really do appreciate you thinking of me. I'm busy with wedding preparations at the moment, but maybe we can meet after the wedding. If she messages back and asks straight out why she's not invited, say that you really appreciate that she's so interested, but that, because of money and venue space, you will need to prioritize family and friends who you are a little closer to at the moment, and you are very sorry. But that means that friends who you haven't seen much of since high school will need to wait until after the wedding to see photos and videos. This is not the same as lying and saying you are having a small or a cheap wedding. It is simply saying you are trying not to invite too many people and keep to a budget, which is true for most couples. If she throws a hissy fit after that, just say you're very sorry, but that's the way things are, and other people will need to miss out too, even if by other people that's only your mom's boyfriend's third cousin. Then tell her you're not talking about this anymore. Commenter 3. I'd say, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out. I am letting you know that I have already picked out my bridesmaids, and that my fiancé and I have agreed on a very small list of attendees. Apologies, but thanks again for sharing in my fiancé's and my joy. Commenter 4. You're on dodgy ground making assumptions about her bridesmaid's dress comment, because she could very well have been invited to be a bridesmaid with somebody else's wedding. I'd go for nice to hear from you, and thank you for your good wishes. I'm kind of busy with wedding preparations at the moment, but would be good to meet up with you and other high school classmates after the wedding. Stories number 25. My wife may never walk again. My pregnant wife works in the medical field. Got a call a couple days ago that she hurt herself and her arms were hurting and starting to go numb. She said she talked to her doctor and was waiting for them to call back. I told her let me know if I needed to come get her or not. An hour later, she says they told her it is probably nothing, but she wanted to go home. I go to pick her up, and when I get there, she's in tears and can't move her arms, and can't move her fingers. As we walk outside, I told her we're going to ER. We get to ER, and between work and ER, she can no longer feel her legs, and they are uncontrollably spasming every 3 to 5 seconds. They call a med alert or something like that crew, and they lift her out of the car and onto a stretcher. We go inside and they check her out and do ultrasound and say, Baby is fine. Strong heartbeat. Couple hours later, they get her into an MRI and check out her spine C and T. The results come back clear with no visible signs of damage. We've been here for 36 hours and they are clueless neurologist's exact word as to what is going on. She can't feel or move anything below her chest. She can move her arms up to her wrists but can't move her fingers, no twitch, no squeeze, or anything else. The doctor is saying she doesn't think it will be lasting, but she can't guarantee anything. At this time, I'm terrified and beyond scared that she may not walk again or have any use of her extremities. I'm trying to stay calm and strong for her, but when she sleeps, I find myself, more often than not, in tears. I walked downstairs and broke down talking to a stranger, and he stopped me and gave me a hug, and I couldn't help but cling to him, probably longer than he would have liked. If you're a praying person, please send one our way. Updates: we discussed GBS editor's note. Guillain-Barré syndrome with the neurologist and doctor. Both agreed to rule it out. Their reasoning was this was rapidly onset, not gradually. It also started in her hands or arms and later moved to her legs, feet. GBS generally starts over time and in the feet first and then works upwards. I asked about transverse myelitis. They ruled it out also, but don't remember the reasoning. They are performing a lumbar MRI currently. The neurologist wanted to get a complete picture of everything to help rule things out. He also ordered a LP editor's note, lumbar puncture, known as a spinal tap, to rule out things like meningitis. Apologies for the short update. I only had a few mins to write this out. I'll update again as I get more info. Editor's note: Guillain-Barré syndrome (GBS) is a condition in which the body's immune system attacks the nerves and can cause weakness, numbness, or paralysis. Relevant comments. Commenter 1: how did she hurt herself? Reply: we don't really know. She said she was with a patient and heard a pop in her back shoulder and immediately lost strength in her hands, and it quickly deteriorated after that. Commenter 2: are her thyroid hormones normal? Reply: they tested that too and nothing stood out. OOP responds to multiple comments about possible multiple sclerosis. Reply: we'll definitely ask about that, thank you. Commenter 3: she may have also had a stroke. Check in the form of an MRI. Reply: yeah, we've had a MRI done and there were no signs of a stroke or anything, so they ruled that out. I appreciate the thought though. Commenter 4: apparently pregnancy can cause paralysis in rare cases but treatable. Hopefully they find something in the labs. So sorry this is happening. Thoughts and prayers to you both. Update: my wife may never walk again. An update: I posted several weeks ago about my pregnant wife having an accident, or whatever you'd call it, while at work. Quick overview: she felt a pop in her shoulders and lost feeling in her arms and hands. I picked her up from work and on the way to the hospital she lost feeling, movement in her legs. Got to the hospital and they did all kinds of tests including MRI, ultrasound, EEG, EMG, echocardiogram, EKG, and so many others. They also confirmed baby was good. Update: they decided wrongly. Read more below on functional neurological disorder. They planned on physical therapy being the best course of action. More to the story: they reached out to the inpatient rehab facility IPRF near us, and they denied us going there. They also reached out to the several places within neighboring states, and they all denied us as well. Our next option would be skilled nursing, but our insurance didn't cover that, and it would have cost $2,000 a week and minimum of 3 months at a time. They also told us my insurance was not covering the hospital stay either. Talk about a kick in the nuts. Over the last 7-8 years I've made friends with a couple PTs here in town. I reached out to my neighbor, and she works at a different type of facility but had friends that worked there. She said she'd reach out and find out more info. I also made friends with a guy that worked at another PT facility here in town. He was a groomsman in my wedding, and I was one in his also. I reached out to him to see if he knew anyone that worked at the local IPRF. He was on vacation, and his wife, a PT at the hospital, was sitting next to him. She said she'd make some calls and let me know. Skipping some details in the middle here because they don't matter much. The next day we get a call saying she was approved for the IPRF. We were denied at in the first place. My wife and I were talking and my friend's wife came up and neither one of us knew where she worked. My wife said to Google her, so I did, and come to find out she worked at the IPRF. Not just worked there, but was one of the top DRs there. She was the one that pulled the string to get us there. They also said my other friend reached out and thought it was interesting that 2 different people were trying to pull strings that were not related or associated at all. We were finally transferred to the IPRF after 11 days at the hospital. While there, we spoke to a new neurologist who wanted to order another MRI. It came back a couple days later. The DR came in and told us she did not have FND. They said she had a spinal cord stroke. My friend and his wife brought us dinner that night, and she wanted to answer questions we may have, and said she wanted to transfer us to a better, more specialized facility. We were finally transferred to the spinal rehab facility after 13 days. She is finally being treated for the correct diagnosis and in the correct location. They expect her to be here for the next 2-3 months, TLDR. My pregnant wife hurt herself at work, not work-related, and went to the hospital. She has no feelings from the chest down. They diagnosed her wrongly with FND, then she was diagnosed spinal cord stroke. We are at a specialized facility now. We're at 4 weeks with 2-3 months left. Relevant comments, commenter 1, and then she should be able to walk again? Commenter 2, PT here. Potentially spinal cord strokes, infarcts are really rare. And I can't speak for OOP's wife's prognosis obviously, as I don't know them and I'm not their PT. It can take months or years to regain function. But it is possible if she gets the care she needs and it was caught relatively early, which is a good indicator for a better outcome. Reply: yeah, it's different for each patient and each issue, but we're hopeful. She's having spasms in her legs and they kick around a little. She can sense a touch but can't feel anything yet. The DRS are hopeful as well, and have stated that if there was permanent loss, they wouldn't be kicking of spasming like they are. We were at therapy within 2 weeks, so we're hoping that was quick enough to get her back on her feet. OP on not knowing what a spinal cord stroke is prior to his wife's diagnosis. Reply: we hadn't either. Apparently less than 1% of all strokes are spinal cord related. Commenter 3, while I am so glad to hear you guys found the right diagnosis and are getting the treatment needed, I'm so sorry you and especially your wife are going through this, and having been basically ignored for 2 weeks on your wife's care. Kudos to the string pullers. They went above and beyond to make sure she is taken care of. Thank you for continuing to push for the proper care for your wife. Women often aren't believed with medical problems, especially a pregnant woman. Wishing for a healthy recovery and healthy baby. Commenter 4. That sounds so frightening. The baseline that baby is fine is one set of relief, but having a secure diagnosis and a plan to go forward to help treat it is surely a weight off your shoulders. Your wife is in safe hands, but be prepared to be feeling all kinds of shaky yourself at what you, too, have been going through. Stories number 26. We didn't write traditional vows. We read our old texts from when we first started dating, and everyone lost it, so I 29M got married last weekend to the love of my life, Allison 28F. We've been together for almost 7 years, and honestly, it's been one of those relationships that started kind of awkwardly, but grew into something that just worked. We met in college. She was a journalism major, and I was in mechanical engineering. She interviewed me once for some student magazine feature about campus clubs, and I swear I could barely form sentences because she was the most confident person I'd ever met. I walked away thinking, there's no way she'd ever go for someone like me. But apparently I made an impression because about 2 weeks later, she texted me out of the blue asking if I could help her fix her bike chain. I didn't even know she had my number. She admitted much later that she'd gotten it from a mutual friend, and that the bike excuse was just an excuse to hang out. Anyway, fast forward to our wedding. We had been planning it for about a year and agreed from the beginning that we didn't want it to feel stiff or overly formal. We wanted it to reflect us, our humor, our history, our very non-traditional way of doing everything. Allison came up with the idea for our vows one night, after we'd been scrolling through old messages and laughing at how ridiculous we used to be. She said, what if instead of writing vows, we read our old texts? I laughed at first, but then I thought about it more and realized, yeah, that's actually perfect. Because our early messages captured everything about our relationship in its rawest, most honest form. We were awkward, flirty, sarcastic, and sincere all at once. It wasn't poetry, it was us, so we did it. We didn't tell anyone, not even our efficient Ben, a close friend from college. He thought we were just writing our vows separately. On the big day, when we finally got to the ceremony, everyone was already emotional. Allison walked down the aisle in this simple lace dress, looking like something out of a dream, and I was just trying to hold it together. Ben gave his little introduction, and then it was time for our vows. I went first. I pulled out my phone, which made everyone laugh, because I guess they thought I was being millennial about it. Then I said, instead of reading vows, I'm going to read a few messages I sent Allison back in 2017. I started with the first one I ever sent her after our bike date. Hey, it was nice hanging out. I hope your bike chain doesn't try to murder you again. People laughed. Then I followed it with another. If I ever learn how to cook something that doesn't come from a box, I'll make it for you. Just don't die of food poisoning. At that point, our guests were cracking up. Then I read one from later that year, one that I barely remembered typing, but that hit me hard in the moment. I don't know where this is going, but you make things make sense in a way nothing else ever has. The room went silent. I heard Allison sniffle, then it was her turn. She grinned, pulled out her own phone, and said, "Okay, so apparently we're doing this." Everyone laughed again. She started reading one of her old texts. "If you ever tell anyone I tripped over my own feet trying to impress you, I will deny everything." That one made even my mom laugh. Then she read another. "You make me want to be a better person, even if that means learning how to like Star Wars." For the record, she still doesn't like Star Wars, but she pretends sometimes. And then she read one that wrecked me. I don't even remember it until she said it. "You said you're scared of failing. I don't care if you fail 100 times. I'll still choose you every single day." There wasn't a dry eye in the place. I glanced out at the crowd. My dad was crying. Her mom was crying. Even Ben, the officiant, was wiping his eyes. When we finished, everyone clapped. I mean everyone. Not polite clapping either, but this sort of spontaneous, emotional round of applause that just filled the space. People later told us it felt like they were watching our entire love story unfold in real time. The rest of the night was amazing. Laughter, dancing, bad karaoke at the reception. But the number of people who came up to us to say, "Those vows, I'll never forget them," was wild. Even the DJ told me, "Man, that was the most genuine thing I've ever seen at a wedding." We didn't think much about how it would come across. It was just something that felt right for us. But apparently, it hit everyone a lot harder than we expected. The next morning, we woke up to texts from family and friends. My cousin Tyler sent, "Bro, you set the bar too high for all of us." My Aunt Lisa said, "I didn't know whether to laugh or sob." And Allison's best friend, Hannah, texted, "If you guys ever renew your vows, I'm bringing tissues and wine." A few people even said we should post a video online, but we haven't. That moment feels too personal, 2 hours. We've watched the footage privately, and every time, it makes us both laugh and cry all over again. What still amazes me is how something so silly, reading old texts, ended up being one of the most emotional things we've ever done. It wasn't planned to be profound, but it captured exactly what love really looks like. Messy, funny, vulnerable, and real. I think that's what hit everyone hardest. Not the words themselves, but the authenticity of it all. It wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was two people standing up in front of everyone they love, saying, "Hey, this is who we were, and who we still are." Sometimes I'll still open that old chat thread, scroll all the way back to those first messages, and think about how lucky I am that a goofy bike text turned into a lifetime. If I had to give advice to anyone getting married soon, it'd be this: don't worry about traditions if they don't feel like you. Do something that's yours. Because when you make it personal, even if it's imperfect, that's when it becomes unforgettable. And honestly, if our texts made half the people at that ceremony laugh and cry in equal measure, then I think we did it right. Update. It's been about a year since our wedding, and honestly, I still can't believe how much attention those vows, or, I guess those texts, ended up getting. At first, it was just family and friends still bringing it up. Every time we'd go to a get-together, someone would mention it. "Hey, remember when you two read your messages and everyone started bawling?" It became this inside joke in our circle. My cousin Tyler still calls me Mr. Hallmark, but then, about 2 months after the wedding, one of Allison's college friends, Jamie, asked if she could post a short clip of the vows on her Instagram. She's a wedding photographer, and she thought it was the most real moment she'd ever captured. We hesitated, but she promised to blur everyone else and just show us reading and laughing. We agreed. That clip blew up way more than we ever expected. Within a week, it had thousands of likes. Random people were commenting things like, "This is the most genuine thing I've ever seen." And, "If my wedding doesn't make me feel like this, I don't want it." Someone even stitched it on TikTok and added slow piano music behind it. And suddenly we were the text vows couple. Allison found it hilarious at first. She'd scroll through comments and read them out loud to me, laughing when someone wrote, "Find me a man who texts like that." I was just embarrassed. Because those texts were so cringy. One of the lines that went viral was me saying, "If you ever die, I'm deleting my Spotify because every song will remind me of you." People were quoting it like it was poetry. I had no idea 23-year-old me was capable of such melodrama. The funny thing is, we never set out to be that couple. We just wanted something honest. But after that video circulated, we started getting messages from total strangers. People saying our vows made them cry, or made them call their partners just to tell them they loved them. One woman wrote that she and her husband had been fighting a lot, and watching our vows reminded her of how they used to text when they first met. That one hit both of us hard. It was surreal to think something we did for us had that kind of effect on other people. Then the local paper reached out. No joke. A small lifestyle writer named Kevin from the North Bay Post emailed us, asking if he could interview us for an article about modern wedding trends. Allison was like, "Oh my God, this is hilarious," but she agreed. We met him at a coffee shop, and he turned out to be this super chill guy who'd been married for 30 years. He said our vows reminded him of the early days of his relationship, back when he and his wife used to leave sticky notes instead of texts. The article came out a few weeks later with the headline, "The Couple Who Said I Do," through their DMs. It was actually really sweet. He talked about how technology doesn't cheapen romance. It just changes how it looks. My mom framed it, because of course she did. Now, fast forward to the present. We're celebrating our 1-year anniversary next weekend. And Allison had an idea because she always has the ideas. She suggested that every year we add to the same text thread, not just for anniversaries, just small moments throughout the year that capture us. So we've been doing it. Every now and then, if something funny or emotional happens, we'll text each other even if we're in the same room. Stuff like, "You just burned the garlic bread again, but I still love you." Or, "If you ever move my laundry from the washer to the floor again, this marriage is over temporarily." It sounds silly, but when we scroll through those messages, it feels like watching a little movie of our lives together. We've had our rough patches too. I got laid off earlier this year when my company downsized. And I'll be honest, that hit me hard. I was anxious, angry, just low. Allison was working double shifts freelancing, and I hated feeling like I wasn't pulling my weight. One night I was sitting on the couch, staring at job listings, and she just walked over and handed me her phone. On the screen was a message she'd just sent me. "You said once I make things make sense for you. You do the same for me. You always have. We're okay." That wrecked me in the best way. We talked for hours that night, not about money or work, but about us. How we both get scared, how we still have so much to learn, and how love isn't supposed to look perfect. It's supposed to survive imperfection. Things have been looking up since then. I found a new job, she's writing more, and we've started saving for a little house outside the city. But every now and then people still bring up the vows. Friends getting married ask us for advice, and I always tell them the same thing. Don't focus on performing love, just remember it. If that means reading old messages, or sharing a dumb story, or laughing in the middle of your vows, do it. Because that's what love is, and if I'm being honest, I think that's what everyone saw that day at our wedding. Not two people promising perfection, but two idiots who fell in love through typos and sarcasm and still mean every word. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I'll scroll through that old chat thread and land on one of the very first messages I ever sent her. The one that started it all. "You seem like trouble, I like that." And now, a year later, lying next to her while she's fast asleep, I still do. Final update. I didn't think anyone would still care about our story after so long. But every now and then someone finds the video again, sends us a message, or tags us in a wholesome relationships thread. It's wild that a few screenshots of our awkward old texts turned into something people still remember. I figured I'd write this because things have changed a lot, in ways that surprised both of us. Allison and I just celebrated our 3rd anniversary. 3 years married, 10 years together. That's an entire decade of learning how to share toothpaste, split chores, and communicate even when we don't really want to. And yeah, we still have the same text thread. It's gotten ridiculously long. Sometimes it's romantic. Sometimes it's dumb. The last one I sent was, "You snore like a cartoon bear, and I still want to kiss you before work." She replied with, "You talk in your sleep and call me Wi-Fi, so we're even." That's pretty much us in a nutshell. A lot has happened since that first year. We bought a little house outside of Madison. Nothing fancy, but it has a yard big enough for our rescue dog, Murphy. We adopted him on our 2nd anniversary. He's half golden retriever, half tornado. The first night he stayed with us, he ate half a couch cushion. Allison texted me a photo with the caption, "Your son made an art project. Career-wise, things stabilized. My new engineering job turned into something permanent. And Allison's freelance writing took off. She even started doing relationship columns. Funny twist, right? The girl who used to text me about burning pasta now writes essays about communication and vulnerability. Every now and then she'll ask if she can mention us in an article, and I'll say, only if you include how you once thought basting meant putting sauce on a turkey with your hands. We've had ups and downs, of course. The viral attention faded after about a year, which was honestly a relief. But the aftershocks lingered longer than we expected. People reached out with intense stories, divorces, heartbreaks, losses, all saying our vows made them feel something they hadn't in a long time. It was flattering, but heavy. Allison and I both realized we couldn't be everyone's relationship role model. We're just two people trying to make it work like everyone else. And we had to make it work, even when it wasn't easy. A year and a half ago, Allison lost her dad. It was sudden, a heart attack. He was one of those quiet, kind men who never said much but meant everything. She and her dad had always been close, and the grief hit her hard. For months she couldn't write, couldn't sleep, couldn't even bring herself to talk about the funeral without crying. I felt useless. I kept trying to fix things when what she needed was someone to just sit with her in the dark. One night she was curled up on the couch, silent, and I did the only thing I could think to do. I sent her a text, even though we were 5 feet apart. You once said I make things make sense. I can't make this make sense. But I'm here. She didn't answer right away, but she leaned over, rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you." That night, she told me later, was the first time she felt like she might be okay again. We learned a lot about grief and love that year. Mostly that sometimes love isn't about words. It's about presence. You can't text your way out of loss, but you can still remind someone you're there. This spring, we found out we're expecting our first child, a girl. The ultrasound tech said it like it was the most casual thing in the world. But Allison and I just sat there holding hands, both tearing up. On the drive home, she looked over and said, "We have to add this to the thread." So we did. I texted her. "She's not even here yet, and she already owns my heart." And she replied, "If she inherits your bad jokes, I'm blaming you." We laughed all the way home. Now the thread isn't just ours. It's becoming a record of the family we're building. We even printed some of the old messages into a little hardcover book as a keepsake. We titled it, "You Make Things Make Sense." It sits on a shelf in our living room next to our wedding photo. The one where Allison's mascara is running, and I look like I'm about to faint. Every so often one of our friends will visit and ask to see it. They'll flip through the pages, laughing at our terrible spelling and random memes, then go quiet when they hit the deeper stuff. There's a message from when Allison was sick and I stayed up all night with her. One from when I got promoted. One from when her dad passed. It's messy and human, but that's what I love most about it. Sometimes I think about how weirdly full circle everything's been. Those vows started as a private joke, became public, and somehow came back around to being private again, just ours. We still get invited to weddings, and sometimes people ask us to speak or give advice. I usually just say the same thing. Don't try to be perfect, just try to be honest. That's what our vows were about. That's what every good relationship I've seen is built on. Next month, we'll hit the 10-year mark from the day she asked me to help fix her bike. The same bike still sits in our garage. It's a little rusted now. The chain squeaks, and every time I look at it I think, that's where it started. 10 years later, we're still fixing things together. Sometimes they're small, like squeaky chains. Sometimes they're big, like hearts. Allison's asleep next to me as I type this. She's got her hand resting on her belly, the faintest hint of a smile on her face. I just sent her one last message for the night. Can't wait to tell our daughter one day how her mom changed my life with a broken bike and a text message. The phone buzzes a few seconds later. She must have stirred, half awake. Her reply comes through, short and sleepy. Still the best message I ever got. And just like that, I realize the vows never really ended. We've just been living them ever since. Stories number 27. The morning my neighbor decided to turn our street into a war zone of bass and bad attitude. I've lived in my small townhouse complex for about 3 years now. It's one of those middle-class suburban setups in Washington. Rows of identical brick townhomes. Manicured lawns, shared driveways, and neighbors who either wave politely or avoid eye contact entirely. I keep to myself, I work from home, pay my HOA dues, mow on schedule, and generally don't cause trouble. Then there's my next-door neighbor, Chris, from day one. Chris has been the kind of person who acts like every other human within 50 feet of him is an inconvenience. He's in his late 30s, works some kind of contracting job, drives a massive black pickup that barely fits in his driveway, and has this permanently annoyed expression. Like breathing the same air as the rest of us is beneath him. When I first moved in, I tried to be friendly. I waved. He stared through me. I said good morning once while grabbing the mail, and he literally looked past me like I didn't exist. Not even a nod. The man's communication skills ranked somewhere between houseplant and brick wall. Fine. Some people are introverted. I get it. For months, we coexisted in silence. He didn't bother me, I didn't bother him. Then last spring, something shifted. It started one morning at 7:30 a.m., a Saturday. No less. When I was jolted awake by the kind of bass that makes your chest vibrate, I thought maybe there was construction nearby, or a passing car blasting music. Nope, it was coming from his garage. I pulled the curtains aside and there he was, standing shirtless in his driveway with a beer in hand, yes, at 7:30 a.m., blasting some obnoxious EDM remix on massive speakers. The kind of sound that rattles glass. I waited a few minutes, thinking he'd turn it off. He didn't. By 8 Sudgoat I was half awake, half enraged, and my coffee hadn't even finished brewing. So I did the polite thing, walked outside, waved slightly and shouted over the noise, "Hey, could you turn it down a bit?" He looked at me, dead in the eyes. Then he turned away and started fiddling with his phone. For a split second I thought he was lowering the volume. Nope, he turned it up. That was the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with a normal level of rude. This was deliberate, so I went back inside, shut the windows, and tried to ignore it. But by 9 a.m., I was done. I called the non-emergency line for the local police department. They were surprisingly fast. A patrol car rolled up within 15 minutes. The officer talked to him for maybe 2 minutes, and the music stopped. I peeked through my blinds and saw Chris standing there, arms crossed, glaring at my house like I had personally insulted his ancestors. The officer gave him a quick, keep it down warning and left. I figured that would be the end of it. Ha, I was wrong. The next morning, Sunday, 7:30 a.m. on the dot, same song. Same bass, same beer, same attitude. At first, I thought maybe he was trying to get back at me for calling the cops. But then I realized this was some kind of weird control game. He'd wait for quiet moments, early mornings, Sunday evenings, and then blast his music just loud enough to be obnoxious, but not quite enough for a violation. I started keeping notes, dates, times, volume levels, because I'm petty, but I'm also organized. When I'd step outside, he'd pretend I wasn't there, literally turn his back and whistle. One time I said, "Hey, can you please not do that so early?" He smirked and said, "Didn't hear you," then cranked the volume. It became this weird passive-aggressive Cold War. I'd mow my lawn when he was on a work call outside. He'd park his truck so close to the line between our driveways that I had to squeeze out of my car like a contortionist. Then came the turning point. One Friday, I had a big client Zoom call scheduled for 8 a.m. I had prepped all week for it. I woke up early, got everything set, and just as I sat down to log in, boom! The familiar stomach-shaking bass hit. My coffee sloshed, my heart rate spiked, and I nearly screamed. That was it, I snapped. I stormed outside, still in my pajama pants and hoodie, and shouted, "Chris, turn it off." He didn't even look at me, just took a slow sip of his beer. Something inside me, the sleep-deprived, caffeine-deprived, sanity-deprived part, decided I was done being polite. I walked straight to my car, climbed in, and pulled it out of the driveway. Then I parked it right in front of his, blocking him completely. He looked up, confused. I smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you liked attention." He stared, dumbfounded. Then I calmly went inside, closed the door, and logged into my meeting. The music stopped within a minute. When my call ended, I walked back out to move my car, half expecting him to have slashed my tires or left some note. But he was just standing there, silent, arms crossed. I unlocked my car, smiled, and said, "Good talk." He muttered something that sounded like crazy, but didn't start the music again. Since that day, it's been different. He hasn't blasted music at 7:30 a.m. again. Occasionally I'll hear something around mid-afternoon, but it's reasonable, short, and not worth complaining about. We still don't speak, but we have an understanding now, mutual, simmering awareness. He mows his lawn. I mow mine. He avoids eye contact. I pretend not to notice his petty little stares. And the mornings are finally quiet again. Do I regret losing my cool that morning? Maybe a little, But honestly, nothing feels more peaceful than waking up to birds instead of bass. And if it took one unhinged driveway standoff to earn that peace, then so be it. Sometimes, with people like that, politeness just doesn't work. You've got to out-petty the petty. And if the morning silence that followed is any proof, I think I won. It's been about 3 months since my early morning standoff with Chris, and for a while, I honestly thought things had cooled off for good. The 7:30 a.m. concerts stopped, and peace was restored. I could finally sleep in on weekends, take morning calls without interference, and actually enjoy coffee on my porch without my blood pressure spiking. But apparently, Chris isn't capable of letting things go. It started subtle, tiny, weird things that I didn't even connect to him at first. My trash bin would be halfway down the street after garbage pickup, even though I always bring it back in right away. A few times, my mail was shoved into my box so violently that envelopes were bent or torn. Then one morning I noticed footprints across my front garden bed. Heavy boot prints leading from his side of the driveway, across my flowers, and back. At first I thought maybe it was kids or delivery drivers. But then came the real proof. One night in mid-June, I was sitting on my couch watching Only Murders in the Building, and I suddenly heard loud laughter outside. Male voices, drunk, echoing from Chris's driveway. Then a voice, definitely his, said, "Bet she's got her blinds half open like always. Probably spying again?" My stomach dropped. I froze, the remote still in my hand. I peeked through the edge of the curtain, and there he was with 2 of his friends, leaning against his truck, beers in hand, just staring toward my house. They weren't yelling or threatening, but it was unnerving, like they were daring me to react. I didn't take the bait. I locked my door, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark for an hour until they finally went inside. After that, I started documenting everything. I bought a doorbell camera and 2 small motion lights for the front yard. I also emailed my HOA, explaining the situation, without being dramatic, just factual. They responded with the usual bland, "We'll look into it," which basically means, "We'll do nothing." Then, about a week later, the music came back. This time, though, it wasn't at 7:30 a.m., it was at 11:45 p.m. I was in bed when the bass hit. It was so loud it rattled the picture frames on my wall. I looked at my phone, 11:46. I could literally feel the vibrations through the mattress. It wasn't even good music, some kind of horrible dubstep remix that sounded like 2 robots fighting inside a blender. I went to the window and sure enough, his garage door was cracked open, speakers facing my house, lights flickering like he was hosting an EDM rave for himself. I didn't yell this time. I didn't storm outside. I just hit record on my phone, took a short video, and sent it straight to the non-emergency line again, along with my previous log of dates and times. About 15 minutes later, a police car rolled up. 2 officers knocked on his door, and I watched through the blinds as he tried his usual routine, playing innocent, acting confused, pretending not to understand why they were there. But this time, I heard one officer say, "We've had multiple reports from this address. Sir, this needs to stop." The music shut off again. I thought that might finally scare him straight. But no. A few days later, I woke up to find a note taped to my front door. It was written on a torn piece of notebook paper in messy handwriting. "You could have just asked, didn't need to call the cops. Some of us actually work for a living." That's when I realized he genuinely saw himself as the victim. I took a photo of the note, added it to my growing file, and sent it to the HOA. This time, they actually responded. Apparently, Chris had already been reported by 2 other neighbors for similar noise issues. Turns out, I wasn't the only one suffering. One of the families down the block, the Petersons, reached out to me after hearing about it. They said their teenage son had complained about the loud music guy before, especially during online classes. We ended up chatting one evening while walking our dogs, and suddenly it wasn't just me versus Chris anymore. It was the neighborhood views, him. That's when the group chat started. Someone made a neighborhood watch text thread, and everyone quietly began documenting every noise violation, parking offense, and bit of petty nonsense. It was both hilarious and empowering. Suburban revenge at its most organized, Within 3 weeks, the HOA had enough complaints to send Chris a formal notice of violation, excessive noise, disturbance, and unneighborly conduct. If he didn't stop, he'd face fines and possible legal action. And oh boy, he did not take that well. The day he got the notice, he stood in his driveway, holding the letter, shaking his head like he couldn't believe it. Then he looked directly at my window and muttered something. I couldn't hear, but it didn't look friendly. That night, there was no music, no yelling, just the faint sound of him pacing in his garage, tools clanging, muttering under his breath. Then, out of nowhere, silence. Weeks of it. The peace felt unnatural at first, like waiting for a storm to return. But slowly, life went back to normal. The morning air was calm again. I started sleeping through weekends. The neighborhood group chat went quiet. Even the birds seemed happier. A couple of weeks later, I noticed a for sale sign in front of Chris's house. My jaw literally dropped. He didn't say a word to anyone, didn't post online, didn't make a scene. Just listed it. Within a month, he was gone. A nice young couple moved in, Emily and Jonah. And on their first day, they brought over a small box of muffins and said, "We hope we're not too loud. We've heard the last guy was a lot." I nearly cried laughing. Now, every morning when I sip my coffee on the porch, I think about that summer of 7:30 a.m., bass battles and beer-fueled spite. It feels like another lifetime. One filled with anxiety, anger, and way too much caffeine. Sometimes, I still catch myself glancing toward the old driveway, half expecting the familiar thump of music. But it's quiet, peaceful, and weirdly, that silence feels like victory, because I didn't just win against one petty neighbor. I helped the whole block remember that being loud, rude, and inconsiderate doesn't make you powerful. It just makes everyone band together against you. It's been about 8 months since Chris finally moved out. And if you'd told me last year that the quiet hum of sprinklers and morning birds would make me tear up, I would have laughed. But here I am, standing on my porch every morning like it's some spiritual experience. The peace feels earned. For a long time after he left, I didn't realize how much tension I'd been carrying. The silence was almost eerie at first. I'd wake up expecting that first thump of bass or the rattle of some truck engine idling too close to my driveway. Instead, all I got was sunlight and calm. My sleep improved, my stress dropped, and even my dog, who used to flinch at the sound of loud music, started lying peacefully by the window again. Emily and Jonah, the couple who bought his place, have been a godsend. They're both in their late 20s, work in tech, and have this effortless kindness about them. They wave when they see me, sometimes bring over baked goods, and they actually asked if their occasional backyard bonfires would bother me before hosting them. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. Asked if they'd bother me? After years of sonic warfare? Life started to feel normal again. Then, in early October, something weird happened. I came home from work one evening to find a large cardboard box on my porch. There was no label, no name, no postage, just a plain brown box sealed with duct tape. My stomach did a little flip. Inside was a speaker, not just any speaker. One of those cheap, battered, oversized Bluetooth speakers that looked suspiciously familiar. A folded piece of paper was taped to it. Didn't want to waste it. Thought you might like some noise in your life again. So, I stood there, frozen. The handwriting was his. The thing is, Chris didn't live nearby anymore. The Petersons said they saw a moving truck take his stuff all the way to Yakima, which is at least 3 hours away. He must have driven back, dropped it off, and left. I didn't feel scared exactly, but my skin crawled. The man was gone for months, and he still found a way to try to rattle me. I didn't take the bait. I called the police again, showed them the note and footage from my doorbell camera. Thank God I kept it. The officer recognized his name immediately. Apparently, Chris had multiple noise complaints filed in his new neighborhood already. He told me not to worry, but to hang on to the evidence. It was bizarrely validating, like karma had packed up and followed him across the state. After that, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. Host a small get-together. Nothing wild, Just a neighborhood barbecue in my backyard. I wanted to reclaim the space, the sound, the sense of ease that had been taken from me. And it was perfect. The smell of burgers on the grill, soft music playing at a reasonable volume, kids running around the yard, laughter instead of pounding bass. Emily brought her homemade potato salad. Jonah set up a projector for a backyard movie. And even the Petersons brought over a cooler full of drinks. At one point, as the sun set, Emily turned to me and said, "You know, it's kind of funny. You're the reason this neighborhood actually talks now." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She smiled. "Before you, everyone just kept to themselves. But the whole Chris situation, it made everyone realize we actually have to look out for each other. You kind of united the block." That hit me harder than I expected. I'd spent months thinking I was just the cranky woman next door trying to get some sleep. But apparently, standing up to that man's nonsense had ripple effects. It made people care again. A few weeks later, during one of our evening walks, I ran into an older neighbor named Donna, who lived 2 doors down. She mentioned she'd overheard from someone in the HOA that Chris's house sale had been forced. Apparently, after enough fines and warnings, the HOA had begun legal proceedings for chronic disturbance of the peace, which scared him into selling before it got ugly. So, in the end, it wasn't me that drove him out. It was himself. That knowledge felt better than any revenge could have. Every so often I still think about him. I imagine him somewhere in another quiet town, standing shirtless in his new driveway, beer in hand, about to blast music, and a neighbor coming out, phone in hand, ready to document everything. And I hope he realizes it's not the world that has a problem with him. It's just him. A few nights ago, after everyone left the barbecue, I sat alone in the backyard for a while. The air was cool, the string lights glowed faintly, and the faint hum of crickets filled the silence. It was peaceful. The kind of peace that feels earned through patience, endurance, and a few well-timed phone calls to the authorities. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need to win. The quiet itself was the victory. And if I ever hear loud bass at 7:30 a.m. again, I'll probably just smile, because I know now, no matter how obnoxious someone tries to be, there's always a way to outlast them. Peace doesn't always come easy, sometimes. You have to fight for it with every ounce of petty energy you've got. But once you have it, you guard it with everything.